Welcome back, everybody. Oh my goodness. It is the first show of the 7th season of Scouching Live. I can't believe I'm saying that. This is the 7th draft that we're going to be covering. 2019 was the first one where we did a live show and all that fun stuff, and been through quite a lot and ready for strapping in for another season. We were starting a little earlier this year now that we're through all the pipeline videos and all the recaps. So thank you very much for everybody who watched those. We have some really great ideas and plans for this season as well. You'll note that Sam McGilligan is not here with me today. We're changing things up a little bit here with how things are presented and how we're doing guests and everything. And it'll be a little more rotational with some other people that you might recognize. So stay tuned for that. We're still organizing that.
Except
but
for
we just
me,
wanted to welcome
I
you
will
back.
always be here.
I was gonna say I was getting to you. Yeah, Mr. Producer AJ Gidaro is here, taking a bit more of a role with the channel as well. So welcome back, sir. How are you? How was your summer outside of working for me for very, very little pay?
Well, that was my summer, working for you for very little pay, doing all the edits. But you know what? I really appreciated the growth that we got. Thank you to all you guys for watching the videos. It means a lot. And yeah, I'm excited to jump right into this because Leafs for Cup 2025. Spoiler alert. That's my prediction.
Yeah, spoiler alert. Yeah, I mean, it's really, really good to be back. Of course, we're still sponsored by the same people, so you can check out our QR codes below to check out Puck Preps and Fanatics. I've been working with Puck Preps all summer on some stuff. The Nationals, U17 Nationals this year, some of those kids are off to the USHL. So I've got a preview post I'm working on for them, going and looking at some of those USHL rookies that might be worth taking a look at this season. But yeah, I mean, honestly, like where we're at right now, the tracking has begun. I'm up to about 20 or so names. It hasn't been very long. Russian leagues started, I think, September 4th or 5th. So I've just been trying to catch as many as I possibly can, or at least as many that I care about as I possibly can, and checking everyone out. And it's going to happen quick. A bunch of leagues have started in the time since, and it's just going to keep ramping up and up and up. I mean, I don't know about, it sounds like your off season was very busy on your end. I got to take some time off, so that's nice.
Wow.
No,
what an amazing concept.
I just dropped you a whole bunch of stuff.
I kind of asked for it, though, to be fair.
Bailed. It's true. You did. But I don't know. I built a second office in my house this summer, so now I don't have to sit. I don't have to be the gremlin in the basement all day long every single day of my life, which is really nice. I've dumped iPhones and I'm back on the Android army, so that's always fun as well. There's another season of Survivor coming this week. The Circle is back, so that's also pretty good. That's a good show. I like that one. Lots of stuff going on. I got myself a pass to go to CHL games this season, so I'll probably say which games I'll be going to. They're going to be local to me as much as I can because I'm not driving all the way to Sarnia. No way. I can do the traditional scout thing to a point, but I'm not driving all the way to Peterborough just to watch a hockey game. No, sir.
So, Will, why don't you talk about some of the players you have watched over this summer?
Yes.
Because we do have a bit kind of a preliminary ranking.
Right. So we've basically batched players into pretty wide groups.
Well, you did, not me.
Yeah, I did. Yeah. I mean, okay, so yeah, and the other thing too I want to mention before we get into this, if you're not familiar, we got a lot of new subscribers over the summer. If you're not familiar, this show, we have some structure for the first 45 minutes or so, but ask questions away, put some questions about whatever and whoever, whatever topic you want. And in the back half of the show, once we get through this sort of pre-prepped stuff we have in segments and everything, we'll get to your questions. We'll get through all of them, or at least as many as we possibly can. And we are ready to go. Rayanne, thank you very much for your 34 months of subscription. That's pretty wild. And
thank you,
Old Bill has returned. And Rayanne, I must also say, shout out to him, doing some great graphic design for the channel for a long time now. And we're bringing back the merch store. So if anyone remembers, a couple of years ago, we used to sell merch, and I wasn't very satisfied with the quality. So I kind of took some time to examine some other options when I had some time, did that this summer. And so we're going to switch over to a different provider, and we're working on putting that out there. So so thank you to him, and thank you to you all for showing up. And so, yeah, if you have any questions or you want anything, whatever, just toss it in the chat and we'll get to it in the back half of the show. Okay, so yeah, first things first, let's take a look at this. So in terms of the players that I've tracked so far, I can go through the list, but it's pretty long and pretty boring because a lot of them are just kind of guys. But there's the first guy reference of the year. Not too bad. But anyway, let's
already a great start.
Yeah, so I'm gonna share my tab. There we go. And you should be able to see it, correct?
Yep.
Okay. We're trying out new technology here. The share button. Remember this? We used to do this all the time. Anyway, so this is kind of where we're sitting right now. It is very, very preliminary. Obviously, I want to stress that since a bunch of these players have not played a single game yet, this should all be taken with about 8 handfuls of salt. But at the end of the day, what we're looking at, I mean, from what I've seen and from watching a lot of the Holinka tournament, I think we're looking at a pretty strong draft class. I'm really interested in a lot of these players, especially the ones that haven't played yet. I am very, very curious about a whole bunch of players. It's going to be an interesting season. I mean, the guys that I've tracked this summer, I'll just run through the list really quickly. And this is in like the rough order of how much fun I had. I'm trying to keep track of like who are the players that I had the most amount of fun watching, who actually like might be really interesting to watch. So at the top, you've got Ivan Ryabkin, who is a highly, highly touted Russian this year, and deservedly so. Definitely a very skilled player. I've got Nikita Poltavchuk, a defenseman in Russia, up next, who I really liked. He plays for Magnitogorsk in the junior league. I caught him in the KHL preseason and thought he was pretty good, and now he's in the MHL and doing pretty well there. Very sort of smart, sort of Henry Muse style defenseman that moves the puck really well and passes the puck really well. We've got Maxim Agafonov in there. He's a pretty lanky guy in Ufa who I really like, a defenseman. He's pretty tall, pretty slender, but moves pretty well, covers ice really well, and reminds me of a few other Ufa defensemen that have come through that program over the years. Vladislav Vukhmilov is a guy I've mentioned on the show a few times, who is another really tall, really lanky defenseman, and I really like him. There's some really great flashes out of him. A guy who I think needs some more experience at higher levels of hockey to sort of figure out the finer points of the game, because there were some pretty sketchy moments, but it's September and, we're figuring these out. Andrei Kuryanov is a guy who I've liked this summer watching him, and so I tracked a game of him, and he looked pretty good. Maxim Zaitsev of the Red Army team, Krasnaya Armia. Makar Fomin is in the KHL, sort of an undersized defenseman with Sharapovets. There's a lot of Russian defensemen this year, oddly enough. Mikhail Gamzakov is a guy who plays for Yekaterinburg, who I've really liked. He's been on the KHL roster here and there. He's been playing with the second division team. I'll be curious where he falls, but the MHL game I did of him was pretty decent overall. Kurban Limatov is a Russian defenseman. A lot of people are talking about, big beefy guy, pretty decent, but a bit of an underwhelming game. Yuri Rumo's a guy who surprised me when I watched him. He's on the Red Army team as well, a Belarusian guy, really tall, really heavy player, physical, and I really liked what he brought to the table. Artyom Vilchinsky came up, and he just did not have a great. I don't know. I mean, we'll see what happens with him, but it was not a great game. Viggo Nordland, William Bundgaard is a Danish guy who I watched in the offseason after seeing him at the under-18s with the Danish national team. I thought he was pretty good there, and he looked okay at the Danish pro level, but that level is very messy. That game was a total mess, but he didn't look out of place. He was fine. Alexander Zhuravsky, small, hyper-skilled guy on Ufa. That's what he is. Really smart player, Igor Kirill Yemelyanov with Yaroslavl. He's looked pretty good, but projectability, we'll see. I want to check in on him later. Then we just have a bunch of guys who are just small and has some skill, like Igor Petrov, Makar Timashkov, I should say, Philip Larson, and Mikkel Eriksson, the Norwegian kid. I did a game of him, and he was interesting. Definitely going to watch more of him, but I don't think he really blew me away. And then two guys who I did not think were particularly much of anything, and Alexander Prishikov, who is just finishing every play that Yegor Klimovich puts together on that team. If you don't know who Yegor Klimovich is, he's like a high-scoring Russian junior hockey player who's struggled in the KHL a little bit here and there, but he's a fun player to watch. He's on Team Scouching, and he's just too good for the junior level right now. And then Yegor Pravalov, who is on SK St. Petersburg's second-level junior team. And it was a bad game. That was a struggle getting through that one. That was a real struggle. So I did not have much fun doing that. So I don't know. Those are the names that I've tracked so far. But in terms of the overall list, I mean, to me, James Haggins is number one, and there's a couple of guys that might be able to challenge him. I really love Porter Martone. I really like Anton Frondel. Michael Misa is brilliant. Like he's just a brilliant hockey mind. Really, really good player. But anyway, yeah, he's a really, really talented player. Yeah, so I think, but I don't know if he's quite got the same level of juice that guys like Haggins, Martone, and Frondel, but he deserves to be in that group that they do. I mean, Porter Martone is a guy who, I've been watching since he was in AAA, and I just feel like he's just such a great build of a modern hockey player, just an all-around, really talented individual. I see a lot of people commenting about Cullen Potter. I mean, granted, I watched the NTDP from last year a good chunk, or at least the U17 from last year. I watched a few games over the course of the summer, and Cullen Potter just always struck me as a guy that looked really freaking good. Super skilled, really clever and creative player. I stuck him there just because I wanted him to be a high priority for me to take a closer look at this year. I've been watching Logan Hensler for a while, and I'm really curious about where his game goes this year. He's a bit on the older side, but he's big and skates really strongly, carries the puck really well, moves the puck really well. Victor Eklund, like his brother, is a lot of fun, high pace, high skill guy. It'll be very interesting to see how he does this year. I don't know. I mean, I imagine he'll crack the men's team for at least a stretch this year. Really fast, really strong. Reports indicate he had a pretty good offseason physically. So we'll see how things go there. Matthew Schaefer, I saw that there's news about him being out with mono for a while. So we'll see what that does. I mean, we're still, 300 days away from the draft. We're almost like 9 months or over 9 months out from the draft. So anyway, we'll see how that goes. But then there's, the interesting storyline for this draft to me already is sort of becoming it's going to be an interesting sort of big versus small thing. There's a lot of big guys who I think bring a lot of good traits to the game, and there's a lot of really small guys who bring a lot of really good stuff to the game. So I've got Adam Banak up really high. LJ Mooney is electrifying. Cameron Schmidt, even a Philip Ekberg. He's not small per se, but he's a very high skill guy. But then on the other side of the equation, you've got guys like Lyndon Latkovic, Will Moore. You've got Jackson Smith in there, who's a pretty big boy. Logan Hensler, of course. And there's just going to be some really, really interesting ones. I've been curious about Carter Amico on the U.S. national team. He's been an interesting one that I think a big summer could do him well. But yeah, and then there's just a bunch of guys who are sort of on the smaller end of things who it'll be interesting to see how things shake out. And usually when this happens, there's some decent value to be had later on in the draft. I mean, but I think in overall, I think this is a relatively strong class. If you want to see this live and full time, you can give us a subscription over at scouching.ca, where you at the partner level will have live access to my rankings as they change over the year, as well as data tables for all kinds of cool little tools that we've upgraded as well over the offseason. I've built better apps into the website so that it's easier to navigate the data, easier to navigate the tables, our tracked data, our drafted team tracker is upgraded as well, so it's much easier to navigate and look at different teams and all of that stuff. So you can check that out up there, and it's not that expensive to get a subscription. So get subscribed.
There's
and
also
it helps us out.
An exclusive offer going on right now. Kind of.
Oh.
You could become the 69th person to be subscribed to our website.
That is true.
You'd have the nice distinction. So
yes,
it might be worth your while to say that, hey, I'm the 69th person to support the project.
If that is something that wets your whistle, So yeah, that's cool. That's a good thing. We're doing all right in that sense. But anyway, but that's generally an overview of what we're looking at here. I think it's going to be an interesting year. What I've seen so far in the tracked data and everything
might have worked, Will.
Yeah, we got it. But yeah, like we have an interesting group of players. I think it's a pretty solid group up and down. I've been tracking a lot of games, and a lot of them are pretty underwhelming, but that's because a lot of the sort of higher end players just haven't played as many games as I like before I start tracking them. Usually I leave it to get to 4 or 5 games, 6 games before I start going, okay, I'm going to take a detailed look at these guys, because tracking the first couple games of a guy's season, I would, if I were a player, I'd be kind of sketched out about that. It's, you're getting your feet going for the first time. The preseason is just the preseason, and things are different. But anyway, enough yammering. Let's talk some NHL, AJ. Let's bring you into the fold here, because someone in the comments I already saw said that they love having you around, and they're glad that you're getting a bigger voice on the show. So, what we're gonna do is for today. Yeah, we'll see where we're at after this segment. But what we're going to do, maybe. Well, no, I won't, but the audience might. Change.org petition, get rid of the producer of this weird random internet show.
Please don't.
No, please don't. Okay, yeah. So what we're going to do is we're going to go division by division in the NHL and just do a brief overview of sort of what we're thinking the teams sort of did, the upgrades, the sort of downgrades, who's going to be moving up, who's going to be moving down. And we just sort of gave a rough, I guess you could call it a prediction of how the divisions are going to shake out. And what we're going to do is we're going to go west to east. So we're going to start in the Pacific. AJ, I mean, I've spoken this whole show, so you can start us off in the Pacific. Okay. Yeah, sure. And then I'll start the next one, and we'll go back and forth.
Let me fade in the graphic, and here it is. So in the Pacific, I've got the Oilers, the top team, the Canucks, the Golden Knights, the Kraken just making the playoffs, and the Kings, Ducks, Sharks, and Flames. And I think this division it's going to be interesting, but I think the top two are very clear in the Canucks and the Oilers. I think that beyond that point, it gets really murky for me. And the only reason I put the Kraken in over the Kings is like some team. I stayed very close to the teams that made it in last year for the most part. Like, there's got to be some change. And I think the Kings and Kraken, they're kind of interchangeable for me. Like, even the Golden Knights could fall out of that picture in the Pacific, but I still think they're a little too strong for it. But it's going to be really interesting. I do think that the 1 and 2 for sure is good. The Canucks and Oilers are the 1 and 2. I lean Oilers a little bit, but there's definitely a world where the Canucks are a better team, especially with the lack of defense in Edmonton. Yeah. But they've upgraded their forwards quite significantly, or at least enough where I'm. I think
they have a pretty darn good group there. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then the bottom 3 to me are Calgary, Anaheim, and San Jose, and I think those are pretty interchangeable.
Yeah, I mean, I think largely we lined up on this pretty well, so we can pass it over to me. But I mean, I've got Edmonton and Vancouver in a top tier, and then I've got Vegas, LA, and Seattle really close in the middle, and then I've got the Ducks on their own, and then San Jose and Calgary. With the Ducks kind of riding that line, I would say, being on their own, and with San Jose, I really was not 100% sure what to do with them. When you were talking about Seattle, I mean, I was flipping back and forth, and because I find a lot of these things, like, look at the goaltending on these teams.
Yes.
Like, step one is look at the goaltending, because show me a bad goalie and I'll show you a bad coach. I'll show you a bad team, whatever. Right? You can't win if you're not getting saves. If Joey Decord can play like he did last year and put up those kinds of numbers, then I think that Seattle will be fine. Like, I think Seattle's a team where it's like, maybe your first line won't match up super well to another team's first line, but your second, third, and fourth lines probably match up pretty well.
Absolutely.
Like, they're pretty well rounded. I thought Shane Wright looked pretty darn good down the stretch of the season last year when he was playing for them. Their defensive group, at least their top 4, looks pretty strong. Getting Brandon Montour is a pretty good add. They have Vince Dunn already. They just extended Adam Larson, and Adam Larson does his job. He does his thing. But yeah, I mean, like, they have a pretty deep team of good offensive players, just maybe not the superstars up front that score 100 points and that can be difference makers, right?
They added Chandler Stevenson too, right? Like,
that's true. They did add him.
One.
Yeah.
So
that's another pretty decent
just
player.
Solid top to bottom, and I think it's going to be like, they don't have a insane first line, as you were saying, but it's like they're rolling a bunch of middle 6 lines all the way through, but they're just very good.
Yeah, and we'll see. Like, Anaheim it's always tricky too with these teams sometimes too, because they're like, Anaheim's going to be young. Like, they've got Leo Carlson in the lineup. Cutter Gauthier is going to be there. Trevor Zegras, Mason McTavish. Olin Zellweger probably makes the team. Pavel Minchikov's going to be there.
Troy Terry.
God knows. Yeah, Troy Terry. Well, he's youngish, I suppose, but he's older. But like they have, and they probably have some young kids that probably will make a hard push as well this year that they see, like Tristan Luneau might make a push to make the team. So you never know, right? Like if a couple of those guys really pop off and have good seasons, then, that's why I kind of have Anaheim out of the basement. I think with San Jose and Calgary, they're just not there yet. I think Calgary is sort of on that down slope, even though they have a guy like Jonathan Huberdeau up on the team and Nazem Kadri. I love Nazem Kadri. I think Andrei Kuzmenko is really good. I thought Anthony Mantha was a sneaky good ad. Like he'll put the puck in the net and he'll get minutes and all that stuff. Like I don't think they're going to be like a shameful hockey team at all, but I think that they're going to have trouble competing against some of these other teams in the division.
That's actually a good point. I don't know that there is like a truly shameful hockey team this year. Like
no, I mean San Jose looks still pretty rough, I would say.
They brought in more pieces. Like they're more of a respectable roster than they were last year. Yeah, and like they're going to be better.
And they're a team also that has a lot of young guys that might step in and do the job, right? Like Will Smith. Obviously, you've got Celebrini. William Eklund should have a bigger role.
I'm looking forward to
who knows who else.
I'm excited to watch. It could be an interesting team.
Last year it was funny.
Askarov too, right?
Oh like Yaroslav Askarov. Yeah, like if he pops, like, whew.
Yeah. So they have some mobility to go up potentially.
Yeah.
If Askarov shows up and is in God mode immediately, like there is a real shot at that.
Yeah. And I mean, you've got guys, who are maybe unlikely to make the team, but it's possible. Guys like Musty and Gushchin and Haltonen and, Colin Graff is an interesting player who I liked when I checked in on him a little bit in the offseason when he played in the NHL. So yeah, they've got guys and they've got bodies who could play. And we'll see what happens. I'm very curious about the San Jose Sharks as well. So I don't think anyone in the Pacific is going to be like horrendous. And I think it's going to be really competitive. Like I look at Vancouver, I like who they brought in. I look at Edmonton, and I was surprised at how much I liked that roster and how it looks now. Vegas, LA, and Seattle, I think is really close for a variety of reasons. And yeah, anything could really happen. But with that, we can move on to the Central Division.
You want to go first?
I'll take it. I'll take it away for the Central. So,
already
for me in the Central Division, let me just double check that this is correct. So I've got Dallas, Colorado, Winnipeg together at the top, and then we've got a bunch at the bottom: Nashville, Minnesota, St. Louis, Utah, all batched together, and Chicago sort of hanging around at the bottom. So for me, it really just comes down to. I think I like what Nashville did. I think that the Nashville Predators had they landed Steven Stamkos. That's obviously huge. But, they've got UC Saros. They've added, I want to double check this.
Jonathan Marchessault.
They got Jonathan Marchessault's in town. Juuso Parssinen is a guy who's sort of sneakily had a pretty good start to his career. Gustav Nyquist has been quite something. Luke Evangelista has taken a step, but then you look at their defense, like they brought in Brady Shea, who I've always really liked. I've always liked Brady Shea. They've got guys like Jeremy Lauzon. Obviously, you've got Yossi. Whatever Luke Shen can bring to the table, there's that too. So I think that they could be a team that surprises people and competes for a spot. Colorado is a team that I'm also really interested in because they added a lot of just high potential picks, right? They picked up Shillington. They picked up Brandstrom. They've got the depth of the team, I think, is a bit of a question. I don't think Colorado, unless their top line can just carry them to the promised land and, they score a bajillion points, then maybe it's possible. But they've got some holes on that team. But I don't think it's going to be a disaster there, I guess, if that makes sense. It's just there's a lot of changes there. And I like the team. I think they've made some interesting bets. Getting Casey Middlestat last year, a full season of that could be very interesting. Nikolai Kovalenko is a pretty good player coming over from Russia. So we'll see. But other than that, Dallas and Winnipeg are another team. We talked about this all the time, about how just solid up and down the lineup they are. and how much that matters. And Dallas is going to get even better, I think, with the young guys that could easily crack the roster this year. A guy like Maverick Bourque maybe could be a guy that gets himself on the team. I thought Thomas Harley took a huge step last year. Getting Ilya Lyubushkin, he does his job. He's got a job and he does it.
That is true.
He's got his thing and he does it pretty well. And you need a guy like that from time to time. Matt Dumpa's an interesting bet. I don't think he's going to blow your mind, but him and Brendan's.
I wasn't in love with what they did in the offseason. I'm not going to lie, but I still think like that team is the clear number one in the Central for me personally.
Yeah.
I just wish they'd been a little better, or they'd made some smarter decisions on defense, right? Like,
yeah, but I think I see the logic of like, let's get guys who can play physical and just stop play. And we've got a couple of horses in Harley and Heiskanen already. And then we just get the puck to the forwards. Like, just get the puck up the ice and let the forwards do their job. And we just have defensive guys who just throw their body around and do all that stuff. I don't know. We'll see. Then they've got a guy like Leon Bixell, who had a pretty good year in the AHL last year, waiting in the wings and plays that kind of a brand of hockey as well. So who knows? And we'll see what happens. But yeah, Dallas looks pretty good. And then, the rest of it, we can talk about the rest of it. I think it's just going to be really, really close between those four teams: Nashville, Minnesota, St. Louis, and Utah. I could easily see any of those teams taking a big step. We'll see about Utah. I still think their depth is a bit of a question mark. I like Minnesota, but I think it'll come down a lot to the young guys. Can Brock Faber keep up what he did? So yeah, I'll throw it back to you, but I think it'll be a close division as well.
Yeah, part of me likes my Central predictions and part of me hates it because it just feels, I don't know, it feels a little weird. But I went in a pretty, well, this is the route I went. So I went Stars 1, like, as the clear number 1. Then I went Avs, Preds, and Jets, and those teams are all going to make the playoffs. Then I had Utah, and then the Minnesota Wild, and then I actually have the St. Louis Blues finishing last in this division. Like, I know it's a little bit spicy, but it's just like, they don't have any good defense, and they're not that, I don't think they're that far away from what Chicago is now. Like, are you really confident in a guy like Jordan Binnington anymore to hold them up? And like the defense, as I mentioned before, like it's never been great, and they just got like their team's a little bit older now too, with like guys like Brendan Saad and Braden Shen, and those are the guys who are playing on the second line with Pavel Buchnevich, like projected, right? Robert Thomas will probably have a great year with Jordan Kyrou. But it's like, what else do they have right now? I think they're kind of on their downtrend. So it might be a little bit spicy, but I don't really think the St. Louis Blues are all that. And I like Utah a lot more than you do, I think. Because, like, we saw last year with Michelli and, was it, Bugstad. Like, that line worked. And now they have Gunther in with Cooley, I'm pretty sure. And it's just like, I think they're going to get better. They brought in Sergachev, and I know that's not, like, it's going to be, there's some adjustments that have to occur. But, like, he played exceptionally well when he had the top power play slot in Tampa. Granted, it's Tampa. But I think he's going to help elevate that offense, at least on the power play. And I just like what they have. So
I do think they'll be better, definitely. Yeah. Like Utah, but that's what I mean. Like, it's going to be really close.
Minnesota I might regret putting them over Minnesota, especially with guys like Kaprizov and Boldy. Like, I think honestly now in retrospect I changed that, but I still like them a bit more than you.
Yeah, I mean, I don't dislike Utah at all. It's just I think there's also a lot of youth there.
Oh, that's a fair point.
I mean, yeah, and like there's a lot of just fine players. And I'm looking at Chicago as well, and I forgot how much Chicago added this offseason.
Yeah,
like, I forgot.
They have Tavo now, right?
Yeah, they've got Teravainen, Bertuzzi, Taylor Hall is there. They've got Mikheyev. They've got
it's not a bad team. They added Laurent Brossoit as well.
They won't be as bad. Like, I think you mentioned it earlier, but I don't think there's a single team in the league where I'm like, oh my God. Well, maybe there is a couple, but I don't think there's very many where I'm going to go, holy smokes, this is a nightmare. But, or at least at a first glance, I just think Chicago's defending and their goaltending are massive holes. Like bringing in,
they do have LB though.
They brought in Brossoit. Yeah, that's a fine goaltender. But like bringing in TJ Brody and Alec Martinez, like,
but that's to fill out their bottom pair too, right? Like,
yeah,
I don't think they're going to be very good, but I think they're going to be. Like,
they're not going to be as bad.
Yeah, they're not going to be as bad, and I think that they could eclipse St. Louis. Like, the best thing
Yeah,
St. Louis has
fair.
going for them is Robert Thomas and Jordan Kyrou and Pavel Buchnevich. And then the decor is not great. And they're in the phase where they're adding pieces in. So I think St. Louis will have not their best year, but I wouldn't be surprised if the year after that they're more competitive.
I will say, though, that St. Louis did do some good things. Like, I know they spent a lot of money on Dylan Holloway and Philip Broberg, but Broberg looked decent for the Oilers in the playoffs last year, I thought. Same thing with Holloway. And I think Holloway is just looking for opportunity, and I think he'll be hungry for that. Radek Faksa, I've always liked him, like he's a fine player for your bottom six, like a good one. Alex Texier has had his moments. He's obviously had some issues with his career, but when he's on, he's always been a solid player as well. But I think it'll be competitive in that range of that division for sure.
It is also tough to predict stuff like this just because there's so many variables, but like, I'm going out on a limb and this is kind of how I'm feeling.
Fair enough. Well, let's go over to the Metropolitan division then and have a look there at what's going on. So I'll go with the Metro first, and then you can start the Atlantic, and we'll do that.
Okay.
How about that?
I wonder why you want me to start the Atlantic.
Yeah, I mean it's it's our time zone, and you're in Toronto, whatever.
Fair enough.
Anyway, the Metro division for me, I've got the Rangers with Carolina and New Jersey in a top group. I've got the Islanders in a group of their own. I've got Washington, Pittsburgh, Columbus, and Philadelphia all together. And I might regret that. Columbus and Philadelphia, I think, are definitely a step behind those two teams ahead of them. But I just feel like all four of those teams are going to have issues. On the whole, I mean, I still really like the Rangers up and down their lineup. I think for what they do on the ice, they're still built to do those things really well. They've got young guys who I would think want to rip the heads off of everyone they're playing against, which carries some level of value, they've got a lot of that on the team. They've got a lot of that maybe waiting in the wings. Guys like Adam Edstrom could make an impact, literally. Riley Smith has always been a solid add wherever he goes, just a good hockey player. Hopefully Lafreniere can take another step this year, and if he's playing again with Panarin, then you could look for him to score a lot of points.
And he probably will be.
And he probably will be because it worked. And on defense, I mean, I think it's just another it's the same group pretty much, and it's solid. Lindgren, Fox, Miller, Trouba, Schneider. It'll get the job done. They've obviously you've got Adam Fox there. I'm hoping Zach Jones makes the team and can stick it, but we'll see. He doesn't really play the brand that it seems like the Rangers really like, but such is life. Carolina, I feel like I haven't really taken a serious look at Carolina's roster up and down, but they're just, again, they got Will Carrier. I've always liked Will Carrier just as a bottom six, go fast, hit hard guy. Again, there's a lot of jobs open though for kids, right? Like, could a guy like a Tyson Yost not make the team and one of their young guys make the team? I think it's possible. Could a guy like a Bradley Nadeau crack the roster? Could a guy, I don't think you're taking Jordan Martinook out of the lineup there, but there are a couple of jobs that could be open for some youngsters in Carolina, and they've got some good ones. I mean, they've definitely got some good ones out there. Defensively, there again, it's a very similar group. They got Sean Walker on arguably the best contract of the offseason.
I'm so mad about that.
That's all. It's crazy that a player who was traded for a first-round pick plus, right? Was it a first-round pick and more?
He was part of a cap dump that resulted in, I think, what was it? Because there was you had Middlestat going to Colorado, and they pulled out. They shipped Byram out to Buffalo.
Oh, Ryan Johansson.
It's Ryan Johansson. Yeah, I knew.
So he was traded for Ryan Johansson and a first-round pick. So he was traded for a first round pick and got less than $4 million in the open market.
3.5. Right? He got what OEL got.
Wild, crazy deal.
I would have paid him $5, but clearly I'm dumb and somebody else could get him for cheaper. So
clearly,
good on Carolina.
But yeah, I mean, I'm glad Martin Necas is coming back. I've always liked him. I think Carolina's got a good team. And New Jersey, I mean, a full year of Jack Hughes, I think will help them immensely. I think New Jersey is a team that they've been on the cusp of making big steps for a long time, but I think finally they're going to get there. Their bottom six, I think, is a bit of a work in progress, but I like their defense group. They're a team with young players that could make an impact. Guys like Simon Nemec is almost certainly going to be on the team.
Definitely.
And I'm just going to pull them up in my thing here, but I mean, they're an interesting one. I feel like this is maybe the year where they sort of take a step. I mean, obviously, Anton Salayev is already playing in the KHL this year. But Seamus Casey maybe is a guy that can bump a guy out of a job.
I will interject though. Like I feel like they took that step 2 years ago. They just had health problems that made it so that they couldn't get back there in back-to-back years. I felt very strongly about the New Jersey Devils coming into last season, and I think injuries really derailed them.
Yep.
And that is a concern I still kind of have with that group because there's just always injury problems with them. Like Jack Hughes missed significant time last year and the year before that as well. Dougie Hamilton always seems to miss a lot of time. Jonas Siegenthaler missed time last year. Timo Meier missed time. Nico Hischier missed time. Like they've dealt with a lot of injuries, and I'm just hopeful for them that they can have a healthier season. And obviously Luke Hughes out now as well.
Yeah.
To start the year. So
not great,
but
I can throw it to you. We can keep things moving along, and I can throw it to you, and we can maybe chat a little more about this division because I'm curious of where you came down on it. Yeah.
So in my Metro, I have the Rangers finishing first, the Devils finishing second, and that's the top tier. Then I have the Hurricanes in a tier of their own at 3. I have the Islanders sneaking in, they're in the third tier, but that's the wild card. Then Capitals, Penguins, Flyers, and Blue Jackets. So that's the way I lean. And Flyers and Blue Jackets are together in the bottom tier, and then Islanders with everybody else. So Capitals, Penguins, and what's the other one? Now that it went off screen, so I don't remember. But
Blue Jackets, Flyers.
Blue Jackets, Flyers was the bottom. But either way,
right.
I think that the New Jersey Devils might be the best team in this division, but they have a new coach in Sheldon Keefe, who wasn't the right coach for the Toronto Maple Leafs, but I think might be the right coach for the New Jersey Devils because they're a faster playing team. So I really like the long-term upside of this team in terms of competing for a cup. I think the Rangers are going to win this division, though, just because the team is just gotten better, and it's another year of a very similar group. And Igor's the best goalie in the league for my money. Yep. I just think that they have a great group, and obviously Artemi Panarin's phenomenal as well. And even Vincent Trocheck played out of his mind for quite a bit of last season. So I'm a lot higher on the Rangers than I was last year, where I was calling them the most overrated team in the NHL. But this year, I don't think so. I think they're very good.
Right.
In terms of Carolina, I think they can elevate themselves into that top tier, but losing Jake Gensel's huge. So I'm a little worried about their offensive pop this year. And they lose Brett Pesce. You do replace him with a guy like Sean Walker, but it's not a 1-for-1 replacement immediately.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see how it goes. I'm hopeful that this team can take another step, but I think it's a step back for them just this year.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean,
maybe we should touch on the Islanders a bit because I think that's an interesting one for both of us.
Yeah.
Do you want to lead with that?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, so with the Islanders, I mean, I thought Anthony Duclair is another one of those guys, kind of like a Riley Smith, where it's like everywhere he goes, he's just solid, just always a good
but
ad.
Unheralded. Just not a player that's appreciated.
Never appreciated. Yeah, bounces around teams and just does well everywhere, and then they're like, we're done with you. You know, I mean, I think with the Islanders, their defense group is always really solid. You know, Romanov is what he is. You know, I know you're not a huge fan of him, but
he works.
He does his job.
You know what? I've come up on him because he works in the system.
Yeah, Dobson, Pellick, and Pollock are pretty solid. Maybe there's a guy that can sort of work their way onto the roster from there. Beyond that, I mean,
I like
Scott
Mike
Mayfield
Riley too, right? And that's
sure
at the bottom of on their bottom pair. I think he's just a good PP2 guy who can move the puck pretty well.
It's very sort of Seattle-like to me, where it's maybe that top line, Matthew Barzal can hang with anyone. Older, yes, older.
A little older and a little more impactful superstars too.
Sure, but just kind of top 3 lines are all solid. You know, can't really complain all that much. I mean, I don't know about a guy like JG Pajot, but they got
much better, to be fair.
Yeah, the goaltending is much better. Yeah. but I think that they're an interesting team. Like, I don't think they're going to be poor. I don't think they're going to be bad. Everybody seems to think sometimes that the Islanders are like a hair away from a total and complete collapse and rebuild, but I don't really believe that. They keep finding ways to make it work. They got your boy Pierre Engvall.
Yes,
you
they
know,
do. I love
that's
Pierre.
another one. So we'll see. I mean, I think, I don't know. What are your thoughts about the Islanders?
Yeah,
in
very
this
similar.
area?
Very similar. But I think what ultimately edges them out over every team to me that I have in that tier 3, so it was 3 teams, which is Pittsburgh, the Islanders, and the Capitals, it's goaltending. To me, that's the big thing that they've got. And they're also a group that is very familiar with each other as well. Like, it's difficult to put in a bunch of new pieces and have extremes or have a lot of success right off the hop. Like, you need some time for that to really materialize with Washington. I think Washington has the upside of being a better team than the Islanders, but I'm not sure about the goaltending, and I just trust Sorokin. And I know he's going to be out to start the year.
Yeah.
But I just like that team a little bit more. But I could see it going the other way, for sure.
One team I did also want to bring up, and there are obvious reasons why, but there are also, I mean, I'm genuinely interested in them, but the Columbus Blue Jackets. So obviously the loss of Johnny Gaudreau is horrible and terrible, and it's like the worst thing ever. And I mean, you just have to think of what would be possible with some more time in Columbus, especially with this group taking a step, hopefully. I mean, I know that, like, you look at some of the names on the roster that are penciled in right now and you're going, yeah, this didn't work before. Who says it's going to work now? But I mean, look, Cole Sillinger took a bit of a step back last year, but if he comes back the way he was like in his rookie year, that would be a huge boost. Adam Fantilli getting his second year in could be a huge boost. If Kent Johnson can sort of get to where he could be and be that high-end offensive scoring machine, then that would be great. Sean Monahan is a fine addition. I think like he'll add some solidity to that team a little bit. I don't know if he's a true number one center that's going to quarterback the team, but he's a decent player. Like, if their young guys can really step up and they really rally around, you know, the loss of Gaudreau and make it sort of a bonding thing and a goal, like, I don't know. I'm not going to doubt I'm not going to doubt raw willpower and the raw energy of young people, you know? And I mean, adding JVR recently is an interesting veteran add. I don't expect him to have a huge role, but like, and also the defensive group there, you know, adding Jordan Harris is an interesting one, but Werenski and Severson and Provorov, hopefully Provorov can sort of find some stability. If David Jiricek can sort of make himself a two-way sort of impact guy, that might be asking a lot of him at this age, but I mean, they may very well finish at the bottom of this division, but I think there's some interesting players here that if the young guys can sort of start to take the reins here, then maybe you get something interesting out of Columbus this year. Philadelphia, I'm less optimistic about, honestly, looking at their roster. I mean, I don't think it's bad.
I like a lot of the guys, though, is the thing. Like, I like an Owen Tippett. I love Travis Konechny.
Oh, yeah.
Matvey Michkov's coming, so that's going to be a lot of fun. I think those two teams are very similar in terms of just their overall abilities right now.
Yeah.
That being Columbus and Philadelphia.
Yeah.
I will touch on one quick thing. I love Zach Werenski, and you brought him up earlier. I just wish he'd have a full season where he doesn't get hurt. Yeah. Because, my God, and this is fantasy hockey advice, people, draft Zach Werenski kind of later because people seem to forget about him, and I get him every year. And yeah, he misses about 20 games, but he's always really, really solid for me in the games he has.
Where did you have Pittsburgh in this division again?
I had Pittsburgh at 6.
Right. So at 6. Where I had them. Yeah.
We have very similar lists.
Yeah. Interesting team, though. Like, I didn't realize that they added Blake Lizotte. I'm a huge Blake Lizotte guy.
The thing with Pittsburgh is that they are a team of an elite first line, then something of a second line, and an aging of Genny Malkin. And then they've got 2 great bottom 6 lines that I like.
Right. Yeah.
It's just, is it going to be enough? You know, Tristan Jarry is fine, but he's not amazing. And Sidney Crosby can only will them so much. Like, I like Brian Rust, I like Ricard Raquel, but Malkin's fallen off quite a bit. Erik Karlsson's bad when he's defending. It is a nightmare. Ryan Graves is not very good defending. Like, they just have.
It's gonna be tough.
It's gonna be rough with them. So that's why, like, I can't fully count them out of a playoff picture because they have Sidney Crosby, and that guy is a god. All right, that man can carry that, put the whole team on his back, and use his massive legs to carry them. So.
Yeah, Matt Grelchik is a good add too on defense. Yeah, Grizzlick is pretty solid. I've always liked him, but yeah, that might be a tough one. But they are both like, when you have Sidney Crosby on your team, you're probably going to do just fine.
Yes, and atrocious special teams they've had previously too.
Oh yeah, that was.
I feel like Erik Karlsson everything has to go through Erik Karlsson.
That power play was a nightmare. I remember watching that power play last year. It's like it was 1996 watching them play on the power play. It just made no sense.
It was just like, it was so funny because it was just Karlsson and Malkin passing back and forth to each other. Like, Crosby wasn't even perimeter, involved.
Yeah, all perimeter, all just shots from the perimeter, just all no movement. Nobody was changing positions, no trickery, no nothing. It was just guys standing around passing the puck and putting it on. Like, it was crazy. But anyway,
it's gonna be tough.
Yeah, hopefully we'll see changes there.
Do you want me to get to Kyle Dubas's former team and the Toronto Maple Leafs and where I have them?
Yeah, the Atlantic Division. Yeah, take it. Take it away. Let's do it.
Get to it. Okay.
Yeah.
Woo,
let's do it.
Number 1, baby. No, but I do have the Leafs at 1, but it's not a very strong one. I think there are 3 teams in the Atlantic that are really, really good. I like the Bruins too, but not enough where I see them with the rest of them. Then I got the Senators. Then I have the Red Wings, the Canadiens, and the Sabres. I think the Sabres are going to be really bad this year. I think they're going to be very, very bad.
Like, that's a team where I was surprised. Like, you look up and down the roster and you're going, oh boy, like, unless the kids can really take over that team, like.
But that's a lot of trust.
And that's a lot of trust.
I know JJ Paterka was really good with them.
Yep.
But, like, Tage Thompson's coming off of a down year where he was hurt. Jeff Skinner's gone. Alex Tuch's kind of coming off of a down year, but I still really like Alex Tuch. I think Zach Benson's going to be great, but, what do they have? And we talked about this off stream. Their decor can't defend. Like, they've got good defensemen, but in the offensive sense, they have a bunch of Cowboys. Like Power, Dahlin, Byram,
and unproven goaltending. Like, goaltending. That's a risky. It's risky, really, really risky.
So for me, I can't put them even above Montreal because I think Montreal got better. Like, I like what Montreal did. I think Montreal. I think Montreal is going to be one of the most fun teams in the league this year. I'm so excited to see what the Habs look like, because you and I also talked about this off stream. The top end is really good, but then the bottom is bad, and it's gonna be quite a dichotomy.
Well, it's young. They've got young defensemen, and it's gonna.
But
be
I mean,
tricky.
like, the bottom end of like their bottom 6 is not amazing by any means.
End of the lineup, I see.
And like towards the bottom pairings are not amazing either, at least for my taste. I know Arbor Xhekaj's fun. He's just not my favorite player in the world in terms of overall impact. But I think they're gonna be there's gonna be fun good and fun bad with this team.
Yeah. I mean, and like that line of Caulfield, Suzuki, Slafkovsky, it worked.
It's gonna be gross.
It worked last year. They found a match that worked. Line A, I think. I mean, look, I don't know exactly what's gonna happen with him, but he can still shoot the freaking hockey puck. And you got a guy in Alex Newhook who might be able to get him the puck.
Yeah.
You've got guys,
This is the team
Kirby
that's
Dach,
king of reclamation projects.
Yeah.
They do.
Yeah, and we'll see what happens.
Yep. Sorry, you go on. I interrupted you.
Sorry, I was just gonna say, like, they might have some holes. I think there are some holes that young guys might be able to step into and help out. And I don't know if they're going to be a playoff team, but I think they're going to take a step and they're going to look fun. And it'll be a sort of thing where it's like, some of the older guys on the team, like, they're going to start moving their way out. And if you make an upgrade on guys like Gallagher and Anderson and even Joel Armia and Christian Dvorak, like if you can upgrade those guys and sort of support that young top six you have, bring in a big name that's younger, then I feel like this team could get pretty darn good pretty quickly.
And the thing we haven't mentioned yet is Ivan Demidov. Not that he'll come over and play this year,
yeah,
but
he'll be there probably next year.
You have very likely an elite player in your system. Like I think
he will at the very least be leaving Russia next year. I'm like almost certain of that.
Yeah. So this team, I think, is going to be like, we're getting closer. We're getting much closer to playoffs with this team than we are away from it now, I think.
Yeah.
And it's a cool thing. As much as I'm a big Leafs fan and don't like seeing the Habs win, I'm excited to watch this team because I think it's going to be very fun.
Yeah. And I mean, they've got guys who also like might make themselves a job on the Habs if there are injuries or something. You've got David Reinbacher playing his first pro season in North America. Logan Mailloux can put the puck in the net. You got Owen Beck down there. So I think it'll be an interesting group of guys to see what happens with them.
So I do want to touch on the other teams in this division.
Yeah, of course.
I think this is the most interesting division in the league.
I agree. Yeah, I agree.
And why don't we go to the top end? So let's go with the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Sure.
I think on paper, this team is the best team in the league. Now, will they win? Will they win? Will they win is a big question mark. And I think it's going to come down to not the goaltending, how the coaching change impacts them. Because if Craig Berube finally gets this Leafs team to play in a way where they just do not care anymore in terms of like, they just go, and they're trying to destroy you in terms of like running up the score, playing a fast, intense game, I think this team could win the cup. I'm not saying they will, but I think for my money, they might have the best chance of all these teams, provided that the coaching, like the system changes a little bit. I just think the talent on this team is ridiculous. Austin Matthews, William Nylander, Mitch Marner. That's an insane group of forwards. You have John Tavares, and hopefully Nick Robertson gets elevated, and Matt Nice. And that's your top six. And then Max Domi, Calle Yarncroke, and Bobby McMahon is your third line. That's disgusting. Like that's a really great forward group. I liked what they did on defense. I feel like you could have gotten Sean Walker instead of OEL. I'm a little concerned about Tanev's age, and like he could just fall off a cliff this year. But on paper, this team should be really good. But it's going to come down to the system. I do think that Florida and Tampa could easily eclipse this team. Like, I think all three of those teams are very, very close. And I think Tampa's not getting enough credit for how good they are. They did get rid of Stamkos, but they brought in Jake Gensel. And I really like Jake Gensel. I think he's going to be great in Tampa. Brandon Hagel had 75 points last year.
Yeah.
Like, that guy's great. And Anthony Cirelli and him work really, really well together. And they just kind of solidified their defense. Like, Sergachev wasn't the right fit. So, yeah, is it more safe and boring? Sure. But they've still got one of the best goaltenders in the league. And I think Florida definitely took some steps back because cap reasons. Like, you lose Brandon Montour, you lose OEL. And I'm sure there's other guys I'm forgetting. But, it's just their bottom pair is not amazing. And I think they really need another. I think they need another top four defenseman, but I still think any of those teams could come out of this division as the number one.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think Florida got that much worse, but they did lose some key names. Like, I mean, in terms of the guys they added, like Nate Schmidt, he's not a bad player. He just has kind of fallen off, I would say. But as a bottom pair guy, sure. Adam Boqvist, I mean, he's got. Like, I'm not going to doubt the Florida Panthers' ability to take guys and, like, do stuff with them.
Me neither.
Right?
That's why I think
that's the weird thing, right?
Yep.
Yeah, like, Jesper Boqvist, I thought was great with the Bruins in their minor league team last year. And if he can crack the lineup, then that would be something interesting. They got the Boqvist brothers. I didn't realize that. They got both Boqvist brothers.
Yeah.
And you got to love that. But, yeah, I mean, for Toronto, I mean, largely I agree. I think they're a really good team. I think their forward group is one of the best in the league, if not the best. Like,
And the goaltending's good. I forgot to mention that.
Yeah,
They
the
got a
goaltending,
great
you
tandem.
added Stolars, and you've got Joseph Woll. Woll is unproven in a starter's role. I mean, for me, the thing that kind of bugs me a little is like you have old defensemen or a lot of defensemen with hard miles on them, right? Like Tanev and Ekman Larson, they're good players, they're good ads, but it is not like if Tanev goes down with a knee injury or something, the guy that they're going to replace him with in the lineup is going to be
Yanni Hockenpah.
which like God help us all, right? Like, Connor Timmins, right? Like he doesn't have he does have a contract, but still. Anyway, so it's like with Toronto, I mean,
yeah, I get it. I get the hesitancy.
Unproven goaltending, you've got a good defense group as they are, but even if a Timothy Liljegren gets hurt, right? Like he was hurt last year and didn't quite look great in the playoffs. And I mean, I love Timothy Liljegren as much as almost anybody on the planet, probably.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's gonna be
you and me. We're the
Leafs
biggest Timothy Liljegren lovers.
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm one of the only people on the planet who has a Timothy Liljegren jersey.
So you get a little more precedent than me then.
Yeah. I like that guy. He's a good player. I mean, Boston is going to be fun too, I think. If we're talking about teams that might not be amazing but could be fun, I think Boston's going to be at least entertaining because they just have so many big bastards. Like I don't know, Justin Brazeau, when he played with them last year, didn't do a whole lot, but he did go out there and smash. Mark Kastelik, coming from Ottawa, doesn't do a whole lot, but he can smash. Trent Frederick, pretty good bottom six guy. He can smash.
Oh, yeah. Love Trent Frederick.
Yeah. Max Jones, he can smash.
Yes.
Like they have guys who will. Nikita Zadorov.
Smash.
Yeah. They're going to beat the crap out of everybody.
Oh, did we roll your graphic, by the way?
I don't know. You tell me.
I don't think so.
I think we did. Oh, did we?
What?
Oh, okay.
Why don't we do that and you can
Yeah, let's do that. Let's do that. So my thing is Florida, Toronto at the top, Boston, Tampa up next, and then at the bottom we've got Ottawa, Montreal, Detroit, and Buffalo, all really, really close. I wanted to talk about Ottawa. I kind of made my point already about Boston and how much fun that could be to just watch them pound the crap out of everyone with Jeremy Swayman stopping 35 shots a night or something.
And
like
maybe Fabian Lysell doing some
maybe
stuff.
Maybe in Lysell, there's maybe that chance, which I'm not holding my breath, but
I think
he's been training. He wasn't at prospect camp. He's been training with the pros. I get the feeling that they're going to give him a shot. So we'll see what happens. And also they have room for more skill up front, right? Like they're who he could knock some of these guys out of a job.
I think Connor Geeky's on projected to play on their second line right now.
Morgan.
Yes.
Yeah.
Not Connor. Morgan Geeky. My apologies. Yes. I think Morgan Geeky's projected to play on their second line right now. So if they put him in that slot and bump Geeky down to the third, I think that could be a better option. Yeah. If he works, provided he works.
Yeah, we'll see. But the Ottawa Senators are a team that I'm very curious about, and I know you kind of are too, because we talked about this a bit in advance of this. Like, I don't think they're going to be amazing, but I also feel, you have to believe they're not going to be like they were last year. Right?
I think they're going to be competitive, especially with Linus Ullmark. I think they're going to be competitive,
yeah. I will never, ever, ever, ever trust goaltenders changing teams and them staying the same.
That's fair.
I always will never bank on that. I don't know. I will always just be a bit a step away from that.
I get it.
Yeah, reluctant. But hopefully a guy like Thomas Chabot stays healthy. Nick Jensen he's always been a solid hockey player. There's a guy who just shows up and plays decent hockey every single time he steps on the ice whenever I've seen him. Michael Amadio is the same, just a guy who goes out, I'd rather have Michael Amadio in my bottom six than Mark Kastelik, I guess. Noah Gregor, who he'll do everything but score points. I love Noah Gregor, but he'll do everything but score. And that's fine by me. Like, just go out and play hard and fast and get breakaways and do your job. But yeah, getting Josh Norris hopefully healthy and a full year of Shane Pinto, depending on how his summer went and the training and everything while he was away, they could do well. Like they I don't know exactly what the problem was last year for them. I mean, I know their defensive group just was porous, and I don't know if an upgrade like Jensen and whoever else is going to be there is going to like
Well, they also got rid
really
of Chikrin
stop
too,
that.
right? Like,
Yeah,
that's
they
the other
lost
thing.
Chikrin. Yeah, they got rid of Chikrin. They're going to be a team that might need to outscore some problems, but you know, you kind of, if you can really rely on Sanderson, and Shabbat is also a solid player, then maybe there's something decent there with Ottawa. Like, I don't know if they're going to be a playoff team, you know, like if I'm putting them up against a Tampa or even a Boston, like maybe they could be challenging a team like Boston.
I think they
maybe.
could challenge Boston, depending. Like, they did deal with a lot of injuries last year, so I
Yes,
think that is. I'm willing to look at them as a team that could actually get into the playoffs this year from the Atlantic. Like, if any team is going,
it's possible.
Because I've made the joke with you that I think it's been like the last 6 years, it feels like, even though one of those years it was the COVID year, but like the Atlantic, the top 4 make the playoffs, the bottom 4 do not.
Big time.
And
bottom 4 do not big time.
It's the same group. It's the same 4 every year, it feels like.
Yeah. Yeah. And something's got to give at some point.
I don't think it's going to be this year. I don't. I wouldn't be surprised if it's this year, but I don't think it'll be this year.
Yeah.
I think if any team can do it, it's going to be Ottawa. So
I would agree. Yeah.
We need to get to Detroit then, because
I was going to say, you want to talk about Detroit before we go to questions?
Yes,
because there are a lot of Detroit fans that watch this channel, and
I feel bad for you, Detroit
I do.
fans. This is the most mid team. Like, it really is. It's just filled with whatever guys in their prime. Beyond the top line. And then
that top line is great. I love that top line.
Top line's one of the best top lines in the league.
Great contract for Lucas Raymond as well. 8 years, $8 million. Great. I think that's a great deal for him. I thought he was their best player last year consistently. When Detroit was, I love Lucas Raymond because when Detroit was awful last year, like when they had those periods where they were awful, he was one of the only guys I think that looked like he was making things happen.
Yeah.
Which I love. Like, I love Lucas Raymond a lot.
Yep.
Hey, you know, I think I might have interrupted you.
No, it's okay. All I was going to say is something to support your 2020 narrative. Did you know that Lucas Raymond scored more points than Tim Stützle last year? Stützle didn't play as many games, but he still did score more points.
Yeah, we don't talk about that. No, I mean, I don't know. I think I look at Detroit, and like, Moritz Seider's not signed yet, and you look at the number of dollars that they've spent on guys,
on bad defensemen,
on bad players like Oli Mata, Justin Hull, Ben Sherratt.
Yeah, it's
like,
so bad. I can't.
If those were just let's maybe not make those deals and spend that money, I feel like Moritz Seider would be locked up forever now.
Yeah, and Jake Wallman would still be there. They got
Jake Wallman would still. Yeah, they dumped
Jake
out
Wallman
Jake Wallman
to San Jose, and they paid to get rid of him. Like, I would have paid to take Jake Wallman.
Yes. If you're Detroit, you are crossing your fingers and praying to God that some of these young guys you've drafted can make a difference, right? Like, you're praying that a guy like Marco Kasper really shows well and can knock a Tyler Mott off the lineup and play a third line role and make a difference. You're hoping that Simon Edvinsson becomes the top 4 guy that just chips in at every situation, and
I think he
plays a lot. But he could be. Yeah, I thought he had some Simon Edvinsson trademark moments last year, but he looked pretty solid. But they have a lot of and this is the thing. Like, Detroit fans often seem to get a little upset with me because of where I have them in the system rankings, where I have them ranked. Like, they're not, but it's because they've drafted so much over the last few years, and a lot of those guys are not really on the track to be NHL everyday players. Like, there's just not a lot of them. Sandin Pellikka is there, sure. Marco Kasper is there, but I don't know where he's going to end up in his NHL career. Nate Danielson
he's a third line guy, right?
Nate Danielson was questionable, I would say, as a top 10 pick. You know, like, you can go back. I haven't done it. I can't say I've done it, but I feel like you can go back and look at some of the decisions they've made and gone, well, if they had done this or this or this, they would end up where they could probably be in a much better situation than they are right now. I mean, look, Tarasenko and Kane, they're good players.
Yep.
You know, I hope that I mean, Andrew Kopp is solid for what he does. I hope that Berggren gets a fair look and some rope to play around, because I've always really liked Jonathan Berggren. But I think it's going to be a tough season for Detroit. Like, who are their goaltenders? I don't even remember.
Cam Talbot and Alex Lyon.
Yeah. Like, risky, you know? I just saw the comment about Zadina over Quinn Hughes. I mean, you can't really say that now, I don't think, because I mean, Quinn Hughes at the time was a reasonable option there, but Zadina was very commonly seen as a steal at the time. So, you know, let's, you know, calm down about critiquing that. But like, I just mean, like, in the past few years, looking at the, you know, they seem to be drafting a lot of these solid hockey players, guys that don't blow your mind, but they are good and they do the thing well, right? Like, no, Nate Danielson to me has never been the super flashy, constant high-end offense guy that's going to anchor the top end of your forward group. Marco Kasper is just a rock all around on the ice. Simon Edvinsson, he's got a lot of ups and he's got some downs, like, there's whatever, but like, they're just, there's no, and they're signing those guys too. Like, they're spending money on these guys where you're going, like, they can play, but like, you're up against, like, we talk about this a lot before I remember last season in the playoffs, especially, it's like, you have to beat the teams that are ahead of you. And like, are these lineups with these guys that you're paying all this money for, does it elevate your team to the point where you can really compete against the Torontos and the Floridas and the Bostons, right? Like, even Tampa. Like, I just don't see it unless the young guys all sort of, they're another team where they've drafted a lot of guys, and if they can sort of take that step and go in the big positive step, then sure, I guess I could see it. But I'm pessimistic. Them and Buffalo.
I just think their asset management with the defense has been the biggest killer, more than anything.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I think you can look at the draft and go, okay, well, probably an average group in terms of, like, if other NHL teams drafted in those slots, I don't think it'd be that dissimilar.
No, it wouldn't. No.
So I don't hold that against them as much. To me, it's just all, like, they try and get the defense right by signing all these bigger dudes to massive deals that make no sense, and then they wonder why it doesn't work.
Yeah.
And that's my issue more than anything.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, yeah, it's tricky. I mean, I don't know. They're a tough one, in this division is going to be interesting as well.
Love their top end, like I said, but
sure,
the rest of it is mid and bad on the defensive side.
Like, where would they be with William Eklund right now? You know, like, I don't know. Maybe it'd be a little different, because
they might feel like they're in a worse situation because they don't have a defender that they kind of need.
I guess. But anyway, whatever. Okay, so we can switch over to questions. Let's do that, and then we'll get out of here and finish the first show of the season.
Yeah.
So let's dig into this a little bit. So we'll go back to the beginning here. Yeah. Oh yeah. So I've also been really enjoying the first thing someone commented that I want to talk about is that Easton Cowan and Topi Niemelä are supreme because of their rookie tournament games, and that obviously means NHL success. And I love that. It's always a good time
pump
to
pump
the stonks. Yeah. I do it when it pleases me. When it benefits me, I love it. When it doesn't, I think it's the dumbest thing in the world. So there's that.
Double standard.
Yeah, exactly. I have a huge double standard. Yeah, like Brad Lambert, he can score. Like Gleb Trikazov had a hat trick the other day in their prospect scrimmage, and he's going to win a Norris Trophy at this point. He's going to win all the trophies.
Forward.
Gleb Trikazov
going to win the Norris. Yes,
he's going to win the Norris because he's so damn good. They're going to just give it to him. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I always enjoy watching rookie tournaments, but you know, it's a good time. Brian Stewart just says, plan the parade. We can call that the first question of the year. Plan the parade ? Are you planning the parade in Toronto, AJ, or no?
We'll see after the first couple of games, but I'm very optimistic about this team. As I mentioned, I really like this group.
Yeah,
they should win. They should, but they probably won't.
Yeah. We have, oh my goodness, we have a comment coming all the way from Britain, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. Not to alarm anyone, but Connor Lee is on a higher point per game pace than Liam Kirk was in his EIHL draft year. That's true, I
J-Mulk.
suppose.
I'm pretty sure that's
Yeah,
J-Mulk.
it is. Pretty. I mean, he's the only person on the planet outside of me who talks about Connor Lee.
That's why he comes
So
here
yeah,
to talk about Connor Lee
talk
with
about
you.
Connor Lee. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, Connor Lee, if you're not aware, is a British player who is probably going to play full time in the Elite Ice Hockey League this year with Manchester. Super fast. He goes fast. Has some problematic moments, but he's a young British man who's also almost has the best birthday of the year, July 18th. That's not almost one of the best years or best days of the year. But yes, he is already playing with them full time, and we'll see how that goes.
I wonder
yes, he's
what day you could be referencing.
What?
What almost
the day they
best
landed on the
birthday.
moon, which is also my birthday.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, how did you enjoy your time off? I did enjoy my time off quite a bit. I'm gonna brag with AJ here.
Yeah, you got no time off.
Yeah, I didn't. No, I just dumped videos on his table and said, "See you in a month."
Didn't talk to me at all.
Yeah, no, didn't speak to you at all. We spoke 0 times. I don't know. It was pretty good. I mean, it honestly, like, this was my first year of not having a day job in the off season, and that was weird. I mean, I did some odd jobs here and there and just gigs here and there to get the bills paid, but at the end of the day, like, it was weird because I had a lot more time on my hands than I'm used to. I got really into No Man's Sky after that Worlds update came out. I'm a big space guy. I'm a space nerd, and No Man's Sky, the way it is now in 2024, is highly, highly worth a go. And you can fish in that game now. They just added fishing, so you can go fishing. But like, it's super cool now. If you're a space nerd who likes to just explore stuff and see cool stuff, then that's a great one. I'm excited for Civilization 7 coming out in February. I'm excited for that. Yeah. So no more builders. No more builders in Civilization. Yeah.
What?
None. Yeah. There's a few huge. The rivers are navigable now. You can build cities. You can build cities on rivers, and you can put boats in the rivers now, and you can still access the ocean. Which, thank God, like I can't believe that it's taken this long where you have rivers in the game and you can't use boats on them. Like, you can use boats on rivers, like, whatever. Anyway, I shouldn't get all cut up about Civilization. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I also made some site improvements that took a while for me to get through, just to work through. And so it's not like I wasn't doing any work, AJ. I was with my head deep in my computer, writing code, bashing my head against my desk, trying to make upgrades on the site and make stuff look a little better.
Bashing my head against my desk, and then going off to edit other projects for hours.
But I definitely did other less bashing than you did. I got to go out to Nova Scotia for a while this summer, which was a good time. Yeah, I went for a week out to southwest Nova Scotia, it's always beautiful down there. If you ever are in the area, it's worth a little drive. So yeah, it was a good time. How much would your grade for the Sharks change for the pyramid with Askarov in and Edstrom out? Probably not that much. Maybe they'd get bumped up a smidge. Like, they're already pretty good. Like, let me see here. Yeah, like, they wouldn't move around that much. Like, it's a pretty close, like, we put the videos out in a rough order of, like, best to worst, so to speak. And Carolina, Montreal, San Jose, Calgary, and Anaheim are all pretty close. So even if it did shift a little bit, it wouldn't shift a tremendous amount. And I mean, I like Adam Edstrom. He's a nice ad. It sucks that Askarov is Askarov is going to be sorry, I have it backwards in my head. I really like that they added Askarov. I think it makes a ton of sense. I like Adam Edstrom. I think he'll be an NHL player, but if that trade works out in their favor and Askarov is what they think he's going to be, then look out, because he's tremendous.
That's your goalie. That's potentially your goalie. So
that's potentially it. And he can be simultaneously tremendous and terrifying, but Jonathan Quick won a Stanley Cup, so it's possible. And also, I grew up watching Dominik Hasek. Not saying that Askarov is Hasek, but
Hasek chaos.
Hasek did not play the typical style of goaltending. And I feel like we might be getting to the point where the youngest viewers of this channel had never seen him play or really understood. So go watch some Dominik Hasek highlights, because
your producer never saw Dominik Hasek play.
Yeah, then there you go. Like I think I mentioned this on stream before, but I literally, when I was growing up watching the Leafs and playing the Sabres, I would cry because Dominik Hasek was so good. Like the Leafs would get some of the most incredible scoring chances you've ever seen, and Dominik Hasek with his Gumby spine and his ludicrous body does the most crazy it is one of the big shames in hockey to me that Dominik Hasek never won a Stanley Cup with the Buffalo Sabres in those years when he was so good. He carried them to a Stanley Cup final and they got swept. It was just, he was unbelievable. So yeah, so if a guy like that works, it's a game changer for sure. All right, where are we at here? Not too far from the top. Do you think Wright will be a full-time NHLer? And if not, is it a disappointment or worry? I mean, I mentioned this earlier. I thought he looked pretty good at the end of the season last year. Like, he looks a step quicker, a step more evasive. Like, he's playing a little bit more of a higher end, high energy game, which he absolutely needs to do if he wants, especially if he wants to play center in the NHL. And I thought he looked pretty good. So I feel like there's a job for him. I feel like he should be able to step in and do it. If it's not, I mean, we said this before, but like the Seattle is just very deep balanced with the offense. Like, I don't think it's a disaster if he doesn't make the team and he'll play 20 minutes a night in the AHL. I would hope that he makes the NHL, and I'm kind of crossing my fingers that he does, because at this point he looked good enough there that I'd like to see him run and see how he goes. I don't know. I also feel like the idea of like looking at a player and going, is this the time we worry about them, isn't beneficial to anyone, really. Like, Shane Wright is a person who's on a trajectory. Was he maybe a little bit overrated? Sure. Yeah, I think you could make that argument, but I think that doesn't mean he's like, it's a disaster, right? Like, I don't think it's a moment where to go, oh, I'm worried about him now, because he looked not out of place in the NHL, and I thought he showed well, and we'll see how it goes this year. And if not, yeah, I mean, it sucks, but it's not like without him they're an awful team, right? Like, they have a pretty good group in front of them regardless. And that's the benefit of doing the kind of moves that they've done over the years. They've drafted high, but they also have guys where, if it doesn't work with those guys, then they have other guys they can throw out there. I mean, and now they have Berkeley Catton, so yeah, that works.
And I think he's just going to fit in with the types of guys they have too, right?
Yeah,
like just solid hockey players, and he can shoot. That's what they like. Solid hockey players that can shoot the puck, and that's what they're going to
get. Someone just commented Pronman discuss. And I don't really know what that means.
Is there a ranking maybe, or some sort of...
Probably. I'm just going to look it up here. I know he did do...
to that.
Yeah, there's a lot of pipeline rankings and stuff. I mean, I don't know about... Oh, he did do a thing about the best under 23 NHL players in the world, so to speak, or in the entire league. And these are always fun. They're always fun because it gets engagement and no one likes it. So I did it one time for someone. Someone asked me for a top 50 list or something, and it was awful. I had an awful experience doing that. Nothing wrong with the people who asked me to do that, but it was awful. I hated doing that because there's no way to be right. There's no way to be like, because these are athletes, right? Like, ranking athletes that are playing around the world is very difficult, right? Like, it's already difficult to like rank international soccer teams, and they have like a mathematical way of doing it, and people still complain about it. But I don't know. I mean, obviously in this, there's a lot of recency bias. Like, there's just a lot. And I always feel like he is very optimistic about players in terms of their projection. But, like, is Alexis Lafreniere going to be an NHL All-Star? Maybe, but
who scored as many points as him this year or last year? Matthias Michelli.
Yeah, Matthias Michelli, right? Yeah,
Matthias Michelli scored as many points.
Michelli's the same age, right? They're the same, or Michelli's a year older, I think.
But he played on a third line in Arizona. And Lafreniere played next to Artemi Panarin all year.
Yeah. I saw something too where I think it might have been Corey Pronman saying that he puts Carter Yakimchuk that high. Well, he had Carter Yakimchuk really high in his ranking, but someone said that because he was drafted higher, he should go higher than a player that was drafted a little later, but in prior years or something. I don't remember. I don't want to throw something where there's nothing, but like Anton Salayev, NHL All-Star, I think that's very optimistic, and
it's beyond very optimistic.
Yeah, like
it's okay to say it. That's unreasonable.
Seth Jarvis at 25, and you've got like Owen Power at 19 and Mason McTavish at 18. Like Seth Jarvis is already a pretty well-entrenched NHL player, and calling him a bubble NHL All-Star, it's like, well, he's already that, I would argue. And like, anyway, but if this is what people are talking about, then like, oh my goodness. Yeah. He's got in tier 5, he's got Shane Wright ahead of Lucas Raymond. There's that.
That's
so there's
ridiculous.
That's ridiculous.
A guy who literally scored.
Yeah. Raymond at 28, Logan Stankoven 29. I love Logan Stankoven, but that's insane. Nate Danielson at 31 with Anton Lundell at 34. Like,
obviously there's no Fabian Lysell on this list, so it's horrible and terrible,
right,
and we need to discard it and never look at it again.
Yes. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, it's whatever. Like Brock Faber is at 35 behind Pavel Mintyukov.
What?
That is okay. Now I see why people were this upset about this thing. I barely read it, but holy smokes, that's wow. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. We missed the boat on this. This should have been.
Yeah, we missed the boat on this. This should have been.
This should have been the headliner of the episode.
Yeah. The top comment is just a silly article ranking players who have never had a minute of NHL ice time way above those who have produced significant numbers during long seasons. I mean, not incorrect at all. Oh man,
hey,
I'm just scrolling through this.
You know what? We're talking about it, and that's what matters.
Yeah, it is.
That's what
exactly.
Matters.
Yeah, Will Cully played a full NHL season, and he's like ahead of people who haven't even played in the AHL yet. Like, that's crazy. That's awesome. That's awesome. I love it. Anyway, whatever, he's paid to do this, it's whatever.
Wait, is Lane Hudson in the 90s? Is that real?
I don't know. I didn't look.
How many players are on that list?
Lane Hudson is at 87 behind Cole Beaudoin, Connor Geeky, Dalibor Dvorsky. He's got Brad Lambert at 82.
Oh no.
He's got Cole Perfetti and then Luke Evangelista and then Brad Lambert. So there's that.
I want to cry.
Fun times.
Brad
let's
Lambert,
move on.
Honestly, might be the best option for Winnipeg at 2C this year. Like, dude, I straight up.
Yeah, I can't wait for him to play. He's so good. Like, oh my god. Like, I get it, the rookie showcase, whatever. But...
Sorry, it's Benson in the 90s.
Oh,
which is even worse.
Yeah, that's even worse.
That's even worse.
That's crazy. All right, let's move on because I don't want to bash people for the whole show.
We love you, Corey. Please come on the show.
Yeah. Now he's definitely not coming on the show.
No, but what's the best way to? So it's all
that's
good.
True. Maybe that's all he'll hear. What's the best way to refund? I mean, I shouldn't say that. Like, that's objective, right? Like what we're just talking about is like that's wild. Like I feel like having him on just to talk about why that's the case. Like I haven't seen an answer for that. That would be interesting on its surface. It'd be good to know.
Like if you can give us legitimate reasons.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like, well, I guess you're just really optimistic about guys who aren't in the NHL yet. But okay.
Yeah, just want to know.
Anyway, what's the best way to refocus as you go from one draft year to the next? I never lose focus ever on anything at all, ever. So I don't know what you're talking about. I think only weak people lose focus on things.
Wow, that's crazy.
I'm kidding.
I know what I think it is for you. I think it's the ADHD hyperfocus on this one subject. And it's a superpower and a curse at the same time.
Yeah, some sort of mental illness going on. Yeah, like, I mean, I don't know. Like, it is kind of oddly poetic, the structure for me. Like, the draft happens and it's crazy. June is always absurd. And then July, the priority is the recaps and getting those done. And that kind of wraps a bow on the draft itself. This year, doing the pyramids, shooting those. And once I finished shooting those, it was like, okay, I can kind of like put a bow on where we're at, where things are, and move forward. And from there, and that also is a good experience for me to go and look at players from prior years and just give quick check-ins and see what's going on and all that stuff. And then I can sort of over the course of July, mid to late July into August, I was just looking at players playing and just kind of looking at 2025 guys and, looking at whoever popped up. I just kind of cast a wide net and didn't take it too seriously and just kind of looked around at guys while I was, just whatever. And it just kind of snowballs, I guess. Past a certain point, I kind of went, okay, I feel like I've kind of seen everyone. The Holinka happens, and like that's a nice little jolt. But I mean, I didn't find this year's Holinka particularly like amazing or competitive. Like it was pretty much the Canada-US or Canada show. It was pretty much the Canada show, and Sweden did pretty well as well. Like, I don't know. I don't really remember much of that tournament because it was a while ago, but anyway, yeah, I mean, it was always a good time, but that's a small blip. But then as soon as September starts, things ramp up, and I guess I'm already kind of primed, and I know where I want to go first because I know the leagues that start first. And so, and the day I start doing the work is always exciting. It's like, okay, I'm going to take a look at Archam Vilchinski, who I think was the first guy, and I'm going, people have him in the first round, so let's see what all the fuss is about, because last year seeing him, I didn't really see a first round pick there, but we'll see. And I still don't, but I still got to see him, and that's exciting. Thoughts on Yegor Murashev? He hasn't played this year, I don't think, yet. He has played 2 games. I mean, Murashev is a guy who has a lot of points, and I feel like the shot on its own for him gives him a lot of leeway and a lot of usefulness, I guess you could say. But I don't know if obviously I haven't seen him in detail, but I just don't know about the sort of speed in his game. The skill level is decent, but I think it's kind of like he kind of was a little underwhelming when I saw him this summer relative to what I was told about him and what the point production would indicate. But we'll see. But when you have a young kid playing at that Russian under 18, under 17 level, and they have a shot like he does, he can score points, and score points he does.
I do want to go back to the last question, though, just about how to refresh yourself. You just got to find a system that works best for you, because everybody's different. Will and I, we have ADHD brains, so we can be hyper-focused on one thing. Like for Will, this is his love in life, and you just go.
I can't function. Otherwise I don't function.
Yeah, so it's a little bit different. So just find something. You just got to find your own system, and sometimes you just need to take a break, and it's okay. It's okay if you need to just have some moments throughout the season where you're not really watching, and then you come back to it, because then it gets fresh. But just find something that you personally work well with, because nobody can give you an answer that's going to suit your preferences best.
True. Yeah, that's true. Know yourself.
Your mic's I think you need to pull your mic closer.
Know yourself.
There
that's
you
all
go.
I said. Okay. Yeah, as someone mentioned that you need a bigger role. They think you're hilarious, AJ.
Well, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Go Leafs, go.
Someone asked about Alex Huang. Alex Huang is fine. I feel like Huang's going to be a guy that scores a bunch of points in the QMJHL this year. Alex Huang.
Oh, sorry, you said Huang.
Well, it's Huang. Huang, something like. Yeah.
Oh, I think it's Huang.
Huang. Okay, we'll go with Huang. I don't remember what the commentary at the Linka said. I thought he was okay there.
It made me laugh.
Whatever. Huang. Sure. Anyway, it's day 1. We're a little rusty. It's day 1.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I mean, I like the offense in his game. He's got some skill, and there's definitely that I want to step up in the offensive zone and create style. Like he's kind of a throw it at the wall and see what sticks type of guy, which is fine. I do think that the Holinka kind of exposed the defensive side of his game is a bit of an issue. I do remember him getting beat on some entries and just sort of not really tracking guys skating backwards laterally very well and losing physical battles and all that stuff. So we'll see how that goes. But I expect him to be a high point producer in Quebec. He's on my list. He's not a guy that I'm ignoring. And I'm curious about him. It's just I wonder if he's that Etienne Morin type guy, who is a point producer who's got some skill and certainly pinches offensively, but the finer details are a bit of a question mark. But he's a solid player, and I'll take a look. What are your thoughts on Yanni Newman? I really like Yanni Newman. I always have. Ever since I first saw him at the Holinka all those years ago, I thought he's looked pretty darn good. He's just gotten better and better. He's gotten quicker and quicker. I don't know if he's a super high upside guy. I think maybe you've got a physical bottom six, third line player with some skill there as well. I like him. I think he's got enough there to make the NHL. And we'll see. But yeah, I do like Yanni Newman quite a bit. I don't think he makes the NHL team this year in Seattle, but over time as things change, yeah, I could see something coming together. 2 late firsts for Askarov, 4 years into development seems like a good deal for the Sharks. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, especially like when you land yourself a goaltender who plays for your team for 10 years and is good, it's worth almost anything, honestly. Like look at UC Saros. Like the Nashville Predators have kind of tinkered around with trading him forever for a number of years, and they just haven't, because there's nothing that really makes that worth it for them. It's just, well, we may as well just keep him and let him play it out because he's really, really good, and a really good goaltender is hard to find, and we're not completely in the basement. And losing Saros probably would put them much further in the basement. But anyway, I mean, yeah, I mean, I think it's also, you know, losing Edstrom, he's a good player, but like, that's not, it can't, if Askarov works out, it doesn't compare, you know. And losing a first round pick, like you're saying, Jose, you've drafted a cajillion times for a number of years. Like, you've got guys, you can skip one if it means getting a good goaltender. So we'll see what happens, but he'll get his chances. And if it works, then holy smokes, look out. Yeah, the thing with the Sharks is that their defense is very, very bad. Their forward group is honestly respectable, pending Celebrini and Smith not having too many growing pains. Yeah, that's true. I feel like Smith might have some issues in the NHL. Like, people might look at him and he scores 55 points or 45 points and they go, uh-oh. But it's like, you know, he'll get there. You know, give him time. He's a guy who needs some time to get there, but he could.
Yeah.
I would agree. Yeah, their defense group is not great.
But
his defense group is.
They can build around it, and that's the thing why I think they're gonna take a step forward, because they have a more formidable forward group, and now it's just about putting the pieces around them to defend properly and keep the puck out of the net. And they've done that with a goalie, hopefully.
Yeah.
So
They've got Stanley Cup. They've got Stanley Cup finalist Cody Ceci. Can't fault that.
Yeah, but he lost, so it doesn't matter.
Jake Wallman, nice ad. You know,
I do like Jake Wallman there. Yeah,
it's not amazing down there. It's not amazing.
Wallman's good.
Yeah. Thoughts on Tyler Thorpe? Yeah, there's a lot of talk about Tyler Thorpe from Montreal's prospect scrimmages. Big and shoots good. That was my impression of him last year. Pretty decent set of hands for a big guy as well. I just wasn't really blown away with him, but if you like big, beefy dudes, he's a pretty decent one. And yeah, I mean, it doesn't surprise me that in a game filled with prospects across the spectrum from around the world, he shows pretty well, especially physically. And, you know, there's something there, but I'm not like blown. I've never been blown away with Tyler Thorpe. Someone mentioned Yakov Trenin helping the Wild with their penalty kill. That is true. Trenin is one of the more underrated, I would say, like defensive players out there. Like, he's always just rock solid, maybe just not at the top end of your lineup. But yeah, it did suck for Minnesota last year with no Jared Spurgeon, 100%. You're not high on Jakub Wozniak. Yeah, he is lower on my list. I just think that Wozniak is a guy who it's that Edward Shale type, I think, where it's like, and Edward Shale was a really interesting experiment where it's like, there are moments where you will see a guy like him make really, really good plays. Like, you see how smart the player is, because you can see how they're so productive at the junior level, because they're just a step ahead of everything. They're just a step ahead of their opponents. They're a step ahead of, you know, the way that the rest of the game is going, whether it's positioning wise, timing their passes, seeing the ice and spotting line mates. They do things a little bit on a different level. And with Chalet, it was like the play has to be made for him to finish, right? Like he was not much of a defensive impact player. His transition data, both directions, was questionable, and it was a lot of it came down to a lack of foot speed. And with Yves Wozniak, he's a similarly sized player, very similar production at junior levels. A guy who doesn't have the best foot speed. I think at the Holinka, he looked quite pedestrian overall in that sea of really good Swedish players. So I just look at him and I go, yeah, like as a complimentary, offensive playmaking guy with a pretty decent shot, I could see it. Maybe, but where does that guy get drafted, right? Like I'm not sure yet. I'm not going to judge right now, obviously. But for me, yeah, like he's a guy that's in my second round. He's never blown me away. Didn't blow me away at the Holinka. But he does make once in a while you go, oh, that was a really nice play. Oh, that was a really smart one. Oh, I didn't, he knows how to play and you can tell, but it's just, is it thinking about the NHL? Is it going to get there and be enough of a difference maker where he's worth a top round pick? It is certainly early, but who do you think is a better NHL prospect right now, Michael Misa or Roger McQueen? Oh, I think that's Misa, pretty hands down. I've seen Roger McQueen over the last 2 years, and I like him. I think he's a fine player, but I don't think Michael Misa is comparable to him. I just think that, again, you want to talk about really, really smart players. McQueen has some decent hands for a really tall guy, really pretty strong offensive ability in terms of shooting and puck protection and all of that. But there isn't a whole lot of pace in his game. There isn't a whole lot of, needle movement in his game. He's a decent player. I don't mind him at all. And I'm very curious to see him in the WHL this year. But with Michael Misa, I mean, I will say I have been a little underwhelmed with Michael Misa, considering that he was like a exceptional player status guy for the OHL. But, last year he was injured. And I do think there's a lot of good to his game. Very, 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 very smart. And just moves the puck really effectively, throws the puck around the ice really effectively. And you can run, and he does play in a way where I think you can run a line through him, right? He's that guy that you can send the puck to from the defense group. He'll carry it up the ice and get moving and move the puck into the right position and make smart plays at the right time. It's a little different to me than a guy like Yves Wozniak, where I feel like Yves Wozniak just lacks that transitional impact that I think Misa brings. And to me, I value that really heavily because that's often where the game is won and lost in those situations. So yeah, for me, I lean pretty heavily Misa, but yeah, time will tell and things can easily change. You're going to hit over 10,000 subscribers this season. I hope so. If you know anybody who's into the NHL and young players making their way to the NHL, then this is the place to be.
Or you could try and help us hit it by the end of the year. It's very hard. It'll be very difficult. We're about on track to maybe hit 9K, but we'd like to go higher.
You never know. Maybe I'll just
share, comment, subscribe.
Yeah.
Do that. Maybe do all those things twice. Maybe
we'll do radical conservative American political commentary for a week, and that'll probably get us to 10K.
Or we just take dumps on everybody else's work and then make a ton of shorts out of it.
Yeah,
maybe I make a short out of the Pronman thing, post it tomorrow, and that's another
billion views.
I hope. Well, if it were, I'd do it.
Right. Yeah.
You'd burn the bridge for the billion views.
Yeah, probably. And I don't want to do that.
No.
Okay. Someone mentioned also.
Views,
yes. The Sabres should be better at this point. Yes, they should. They should, and I don't really quite understand why they're not. Like, why do you think the Sabres aren't better?
Because they haven't surrounded their team with winners or like actual veterans, right? A lot of the
time. Except Alex Tuch,
but it's like they've just torn down. It feels like it's a teardown constantly in Buffalo.
Yeah.
It never feels like there's any sort of stability. Like Jack Eichel's gone. He's won a Stanley Cup. Sam Reinhart's gone. He's won a Stanley Cup.
Yep.
Ryan O'Reilly left. He won a Stanley Cup. You know, it's like they ship out all these players that are really, really good. And I get the Eichel situation. Yeah, but who are miserable there. And they can't keep them. And I thought they were turning a corner. But then they went and I get shipping out Skinner, but it's like they're going to be barren for a little bit longer. I think that they're going to get out of this, but I think Montreal is going to make the playoffs before they do. I think Ottawa is probably going to make the playoffs before they do at this point. And it's bad because what is it? 13 years now? 14 years?
Yeah, bad. It's bad.
And I want to say one last thing. I remember being in middle school, seeing the Sabres miss the playoffs for that first year. Be like, wow, the Sabres missed the playoffs. This never happens. This is awesome. I hate them. And then they never made it again. Ever since that moment, they have not been in, which is a crazy thing to say. That I was in 7th grade as a 13-year-old and saw that happen. Or around that time. I might have even been in 6th grade. And they haven't been in the playoffs since.
Yeah.
It blows my mind because they were so good when I grew up or when I was growing up until I hit that age. And then they just not been the same.
You know who would look awful good in a Buffalo Sabres jersey now that Jeff Skinner is gone, but they said no to him at the draft? Is Logan Stankoven. They said no to him multiple times.
Oh, God.
And
they weren't taking him first overall.
Well, no, but they had 14. They had 33. What else did they have?
33, I think, is the bigger.
I know. But anyway, whatever. Maybe Prokhor Poltapov is going to be a superstar. Who knows?
I never liked him in his draft year. I'm not going to lie.
But I mean, I don't know. I think it'll be very interesting to see what happens with the Sabres this year. They've got the young guys, but they need at least another horse. Like if Jason Zucker isn't it, Ryan McLeod isn't it. Maybe Tage Thompson has a bounce back, sure, but they need like another boss level guy, and they just don't have it.
Yeah.
And I don't know what you do about that.
I mean, Benson could become a boss, I think. I think that guy's got...
Yeah, that's a high bar, right?
But I mean,
like,
go be really good. I think Zach Benson's going to be really, really freaking good.
Same, yeah.
But yes, it is 13 years. The active streak. It is only 4 years behind the longest ever drought, I think.
Yeah.
Or no,
and
Buffalo Sabres longest active. Oh, playoff series win drought at 17 seasons.
Oh, okay.
Never mind. But 13 is the full drought.
Same person followed up and said they drafted 2 defensemen number 1 overall in the last 6 years. They should be elite. I mean, I had Owen Power at 7 that year. I would say that with that team, again, and I've said this multiple times, but historically, when you look at it and you look at defensemen drafted really high in the NHL draft, the guys that generally work out are the offense guys. Rasmus Dahlin is a great example. I love Rasmus Dahlin, right?
One of my
favorites. The guys who, when you sort of step outside of that offensive impact player and you go for the guys that are more big and physical, not that that's what Owen Power is, that's when you kind of go, okay, but we might not be extracting the value out of, like, Moritz Seider is an exception to that, but in general, you kind of leaves that value on the table when you do that. And so defenseman really high in the draft is, to me, always a risk. And with Owen Power, I thought he was a good player, but if Owen Power were your 8th overall pick, I feel like it would be a lot less, questionable.
Like, think about Matthew Beniers on that team right now instead of Owen Power.
Matthew Beniers on that top 6. Like,
I'm looking at that team very differently.
Yeah,
they're not very differently, but they're closer. They're much closer because Owen Power.
You just sign it, and you sign a defenseman, right?
And, and they have Bowen Byram now too, right? And then that could have been their 2 more. Dahlin and Byram could have been their guys to go produce offense, and I mean, Power is kind of that guy too to an extent, but it's like. His comparison was Victor Hedman in his draft.
Yeah,
that's who people were talking about him as being the next. and we both didn't see it. That was the year I followed the draft the most, and it's just wouldn't have swung that way.
And I know there are teams out there that also felt the same thing when they saw stuff like that, like Victor Hedman. They were like, "That is insane!" I mean, it's anyway. But so when that stuff gets thrown out there, teams see it. Teams see it. I have a couple questions I gathered during the offseason. I will start with number 3. Oh boy. What do you think of Nicholas Coco, considering his very good stats in the playoffs? He's a goalie. I don't know. We'll see. I know you're not the biggest fan of both of these two, but how do you compare Artyom Levshinov to David Reinbacher? Do you see Jacob Fowler compared to Trey Augustine? Again, I comparing goalies, I don't know. They're both good. They're both really good goalies. I don't know.
We'll bring on our goalie expert at some point to answer that for you.
Yeah.
Mr. David Phillips.
In terms of Levshinov and Reinbacher, I honestly, like, thinking about it, I think I remember, like, I had better feelings about Reinbacher than I did Levshinov. Because, I mean, I still think they were both drafted too high, but I look at the shot quality that Reinbacher has and the mobility and the fluidity in his skating as really positive. And I feel like Levshinov is a step behind in those areas. And honestly, like, when I watch Levshinov, I said this before on the show a few times. I'm sitting there going, I don't know how this guy scores so much. I can't identify what it is at even strength that he is doing that is driving offense, right? Like, he's not a very evasive guy at the blue line. He's an okay puck carrier. He's not the best puck mover through his passing. He does make some interesting creative offensive plays once in a while, and maybe that's it. But I look at David Reinbacher and I go, that guy can crank it from the blue line. That guy moves around the ice pretty well, and he's got size that he can use well. Levshinov has size, but the lower end skating ability and quickness relative to a guy like Reinbacher puts him a step behind other players a lot more than what I remember of Reinbacher.
So quickly, do you think that part of your better feeling about Reinbacher also comes from where he was projected to go? Because Levshinov was always projected to go much higher, and I know you were kind of, not that you were fighting it, but it's like, oh, dude, should he really go at second? Where Reinbacher kind of snuck up the rankings over the year. Like, does that play into that at all?
Maybe. I think with Reinbacher also, it was like, with Reinbacher, it was funny, like, because I remember watching him the year before he was drafted, and I noted him down, and I went, this guy looks pretty interesting. Like, I really liked this guy when I watched him, and he wears 64, just like me when I played ball hockey. Like, really cool. I like this guy. Let's see how it goes next year.
Personal attachment, the best way to get.
Exactly. Yes. That was step 1.
Get invested.
But then it was like, when I watched him, I was like, okay, this guy's good. Like, he's a good player, and I could see why he's a first-round pick, no problem. But then it was like, okay, I think people are getting a little bit, like, I like this guy, but things I think are getting a little bit out of control. And when he went top 5, I kind of see why, but this is a risk, right? Like, you're betting on a lot. And with Levshinov, I never was really that big of a fan. Going back to the year before he was drafted, I sort of saw him the same way. Like, my opinions of him never really changed. And I kind of had him lower. I had him lower than everybody for sure. But I kind of watched him and I just didn't really know. Like, I wasn't the biggest fan of him, but a lot of people were telling me, like, with him, it's about the development. It's about where he goes from here. It's about this and this and this. And I'm going, okay, so he started the year really high already. And I wasn't already a big fan. Whereas Reinbacher worked his way up and then I think overshot sort of where I thought he should have gone. So it's a bit of a different scenario as well, but I'm sure it also is a difference of just where I was primed to think.
Yeah, I think that plays a big factor into a lot of these conversations. Because, like, I remember, or at least for me, like, I remember not liking Mason McTavish at all when I first saw him, and then really starting to like him. And he climbed up the boards, kept climbing up boards, and then he was way too high for me towards the end of that 2021 class. And it's like, okay, guys, pump the brakes.
Yeah, exactly.
So I do think those things play into effect. Same thing with Cutter Gauthier for me. I really loved Cutter Gauthier. I was like, oh, this guy's great. Like,
he's another one.
I'll put him in my top 20.
Yeah.
And it's like,
And then,
whoa.
whoa. Beckett Seneca this year.
Yeah.
It's like, I like this guy. He's fun. He's got some skill. He goes, but like third overall, holy smokes, what is happening?
Yeah, because there's just one guy like that every year that just pops
always.
right in.
Okay. I love this one. As someone who had to watch Yanni Hakanpää every game last year, he's genuinely the worst D-man I've watched.
Well, that
but
makes
he's
me feel good.
But he's 6'7" every time he steps on the ice. Okay, so maybe you're just a big dummy dum dum.
Yeah, he'll clobber you for
yeah. He'll smash you. Just don't run away from him because his knees are basically bone on bone at this point. He won't be able to catch you. I'm pretty sure Sweeney said that if Fabian Lysell didn't get hurt at the end of the year, he was going to get a call up. Oh, well, there you go. I mean, yeah, the fact that he's not at rookie camp and training with the actual Bruins, I think, is a big indicator of where they feel like he is.
50-point season, maybe.
Yeah,
I could see it. I could see it.
I know you're not a goalie wizard, but are there any goalies out there that have caught your eye? Yeah, I mean, I've been taking a look at them. Ivan Kovic obviously is a good one. I think Harenstam looks really good as well, the Swedish guy. I like Patrick Kerkula. He's been having a rough start to his season this year, but I thought the Holinka, he looked pretty good. And the tape I saw from last year, he also looked pretty good. I like Pyotr Andrianov, Red Army's goaltender. He's been facing a lot of pucks. They've got a fun, fast offensive team, and they give up a lot of shots, and he stops a lot of them. But yeah, there's a few of them. Michael Pradell, he was at the Holinka as well. I wrote him down to check him out later. Joshua Ravensbergen is another one who I liked the tape of. I saw that last season. So there's a few. I think there's some good ones. There's always some fun ones down the board as well that are always fun to look at. Like there's a Polish goaltender who played, and honestly, one of the most underrated national leagues in the world is Poland's. I actually had the opportunity to do some actual data work behind that. For a presentation I gave in June, and Poland came up as one of the more difficult leagues to play in. So he's listed as a second division goaltender in Poland, but we'll see what happens because the top division is no joke. Okay. Ottawa will end up. Oh, I should say the guy's name. Kasper Michalski, I think is his name. Oh, I don't have a good idea of what Polish sounds like, so there. Ottawa's going to end up in the middle of the league, and Ottawa's the Nashville of the East. I mean, I think Ottawa's going to be there. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. There's a lot of talk about the Red Wings, which makes sense because they're always worth chatting about. Brian Stewart, Topi Niemelä is bad. Yeah, I said it.
No, not allowed. Not allowed.
Yeah, not
We're
allowed.
banning you, Brian.
Yeah. He's dead. He's dead to us. He's dead.
You can only come back as and Brian Stewart.
Yep. How close would you say Banak is to Hagens? I think he's quite a bit of a ways behind. Hagens is unbelievable. I think Hagens he's in a tier of his own for me. I think that he's just such an unbelievably talented hockey player. Not saying that Banak is not. I think talent-wise, Banak is very, very, very high end, but in terms of like moving the puck and playing as a unit and putting in the defensive work as well, I think Hagens is just a step ahead of him. Banak is really good. I think he's a lot of fun to watch, but Hagens just brings so much to the table. Couple of comments that just say Gleb. Yeah, that's true. There's a lot of Glebs this year in the draft as well, so we'll keep a close eye on those. Yep. Gleb Hattie the other day. That's pretty fun. I know this is kind of late, but which player surprised you from the Holinka? There's a guy in Finland that I liked a lot, Yasu Mensonen. I had never seen him before, but he's a guy that stuck out to me.
So all the Finns will hate him then, if you like him.
Probably. I mean, he was the only guy on that team that was moving the puck with any sort of speed at all.
So then all the Finnish people will hate him.
He's going to be D&D to them, and
I do not like his game. I do not see how it can translate.
He's a guy that goes in the maybe 4th, 6th round, I don't know. I go back to my sauna.
Enough.
Yeah, he's yeah.
We love the Finns. We just like making fun of them.
He doesn't like to pass the puck. He's a stupid. Okay. I know. Okay, yeah. Oh, good one. No Man's Guy. Is he at least some guy's buddy? That's a funny one. I like that. You're a space guy. What are your top 2 to 3 space movies?
Space Cadet is the term, I think.
Yeah, I am a space cadet for sure. 2001 obviously is right there, number 1. I'm gonna throw out the original Star Wars as 2. I know someone responded with Empire Strikes Back. I don't know. I get the hype on the Empire Strikes Back, but there's something about the original Star Wars to me that is just like, it's an adventure that is the best adventure ever, and I just think it's so much fun.
Episode 4, or do you mean
yes, episode 4, not episode 1?
What?
That's another thing I did this summer. I rewatched all 9 Star Wars movies.
How can you not love Jar Jar Binks?
Almost all of those movies are some of the most disappointing pieces of content ever made. That 100%, like, insane. It's just crazy. Anyway, like, oh my god, don't get me started.
No, we can make a short out of this. I'm cool with this.
Like, they didn't need to make Anakin Skywalker a child. Like, if they had Hayden Christensen and have him growing up and like make him a teenager, right? Like, make him an impressionable teenager, right? Like, don't start with him as a child and be like, hey, this is gonna be Darth Vader. Look how cool this movie is. He's a racing guy. And then it fast forwards 2 years later, and like, Obi-Wan Kenobi has a beard and Anakin Skywalker is 6 feet tall. It's like, no. Like, so much cool stuff could have happened in between those 2 time periods, and you got nothing. So it's like, start as a teenager, right? You find Anakin Skywalker wandering Tatooine. Maybe he's like some poor guy on the street who's like, doing magic tricks because he knows he can use the Force a little bit, but he has no idea what it is, and he's tricking people and all that. And Obi-Wan Kenobi is like, I'm following a signal from the Force or whatever that my boss Qui-Gon Jinn told me to go find. And it, like, there's an adventure. He escapes with Anakin Skywalker, teaches him about the Force, and then off you go, and you have a fun movie. And then you have a teenage guy who's very impressionable, who can and the thing that was great about those Star Wars movies in the prequels was like, it did capture how a person can become corrupted by power very easily, right? Like, your loved ones are in danger, someone's manipulating you, blah, blah, blah. That was fine, but it was just written and acted horribly. But then the 7, 8, 9 movies, like, man, I was part of the crew that actually liked The Last Jedi or whatever, the number 8, the one that went kind of haywire a little bit. Episode 9 is one of the biggest travesties in movie history, in my opinion. That's where I'm going to put my flag in the dirt. It's one of the biggest travesties in the history of movies. And also this, actually, I don't want to spoil the end in case anybody wants to see the new Star Wars movies and hasn't seen them yet. But anyway, I guess to answer the question, definitely 2001, the original Star Wars, and oh man, there's a lot of good ones. Oh man, I'll
in the meantime, I will just say that
because
I was a kid when I saw Star Wars Episode 1, which, me being a kid, actually thought that was the first Star Wars and was surprised. The other ones. This is gonna make people mad, but I loved Jar Jar as a kid because Jar Jar was a goofy idiot. I loved Jar Jar. And I understand that people do not like him. I get it. But Darth Binks is gonna come back and he's gonna kill you all. He is the ultimate Sith Lord.
Yeah.
All hail.
So I've got
Darth Binks.
Yeah. I have a tie. I'm gonna bend the rules and give a tie. Arrival. And I mean, that's not a space movie, but it has aliens in it. It's a space related. There's that. And if you don't like the fact that movie's not taking place in space, I'm going to throw out, I just had it in front of me. Contact with Jodie Foster and Matthew McConaughey. And if you really need a movie that's set in space, because that movie is also not set in space, I'll go with Sunshine. Sunshine from 2007, one of the most underrated movies ever made. Highly recommend that one. Even if the last third of that movie is very weird and goes a little off the rails, I still think it's an amazing movie. And it has one of my favorite actors in the world in it, Cillian Murphy. Guy's a boss. super good cast in that movie too. Chris Evans is in that before he did all the Marvel movies. There's a whole bunch of them that are in that movie, and it's great. If you ever watched Shogun, the HBO show, the main character samurai guy is in that movie, and he's really good in it. Anyway, whatever. No Man's Sky is Starfield, but good. That is extremely true. How close is Ivan Yunin to Dominic Hasek? He's right there with him. They're the same. I always wonder what Dominic Hasek would look like if he were born in the year 1998 and grew up playing against modern shooters. I think that if Dominic Hasek were born in 1998, some goalie coach along the way would have ruined him. That's what I think.
It's possible.
Yeah.
I did see
thoughts on the Germans this year. What? Sorry. What?
No, it's okay. You found the comment.
Someone said thoughts on Germans this year. I like Rio Kaiser, the defenseman. I've liked him in the very brief moments he's played in the Champions League this year so far. He's 6'7" and pretty decent. Dustin Wilhoft might be an interesting one, but I think he's a bit of a long shot, maybe a late round guy, just because I don't trust players that play in the junior league in Germany at all. I'd rather see them play pro or junior somewhere else. But yeah, the guy I have my eye on is Rio Kaiser over there. He's the guy I like. Year one of a 3-year fantasy keeper league with 18 guys, 5 keepers each. Where do you? Oh God, I don't know.
It's tough. I saw this question earlier. Like it's all dependent. Like we can't really give you a good answer because I don't know what your draft's gonna look like. I don't know how the people kind of act in the league. So I appreciate we appreciate the question. It's just like it's kind of hard to really give you very specific advice about players.
Yeah.
What we can say is Michkov's going to be great. That could be a guy that you should look at. Who were the other two that he had mentioned? Because I know there were
Michkov, Gauthier, Hudson.
That's Lane, yeah?
Yeah, I would think.
I think Lane's a good swing. I don't know about Gauthier, though. I don't know that he's going to get like the best deployment in Anaheim necessarily. Like,
I think he'll score points.
He'll score points.
He can score, yeah.
It's just I like Michkov the best out of those guys. I just have a hard time like telling you exactly, especially in a pretty deep league like that, where to go.
Yeah.
But I'm really high on Michkov. If you're gonna, I'd swing on him pretty high. That's what I can say.
I like this one. The Nova Scotians are eating the dogs. They are eating the dogs. Yeah, that's a legendary moment from the offseason for sure. But no, I assure you in Nova Scotia, they are not eating dogs. You can choose to believe me or not.
No, they're just
they're not. Yeah.
They're just doing whatever the Trailer Park Boys are doing. That's what Nova Scotia's like.
Yeah, growing dope. There's a lot of dope growing out in Nova Scotia,
and Nathan McKinnon shows up and tells you, well, I don't think I could say it, but
I was actually in town in Nova Scotia while I was there for the big biker rally that goes on in town near where my family lives.
Hell yeah!
So that was fun, seeing a bunch of motorcycles everywhere and just
meet Ricky
throttling
everywhere. There?
No, unfortunately not. They're Sunnyvale, I believe, is way up the coast in a different area of the province. So unfortunately, I didn't see them. Was Ryan Miller the last goalie to make the playoffs with the Sabres? I believe that's true.
He absolutely was.
Yeah. Most confusing player you've ever watched? That's a tough one.
Ooh, that's interesting.
Most confusing.
It can be different, right? Like like who's Sam Dickinson's probably one for you, right?
Yeah, that's probably
I would
one.
think that Sam Dickinson's right up there.
Dvorsky, Dalibor Dvorsky.
I thought he was boring. I don't think there was anything confusing about that.
Yeah, that's true. But like the way people were talking about him, I was like, I want to pull my hair out.
Yeah, but he wasn't confusing, right? Like,
I guess
it was the stuff around him that was confusing.
I could throw Denton Matejchuk out there.
Yes,
because Matejchuk is a guy that honestly, like, I get it that some people out there love him, and I get it, but I just want to see it happen. I have zero confidence that those things will come to pass, right? Like, I would love it if a guy like Denton Matejchuk could work in the NHL. We'll find out relatively soon, I think. But that was one where I was watching him and I'm like, what is he going to do in the NHL? Like, this isn't NHL hockey. Like, what is, like, how does this even work? Like,
You have to
how
pray
is he
for the
doing
Evan
this?
Bouchard mold. Like, that's literally
Pretty
what you're
much.
banking on, but I don't think he's nearly as talented as Evan Bouchard.
I don't know. I just don't know. That's the thing, right? Like, it's confusing. I get where he went. I understand it. Points.
But, like,
You know, he's an, yeah,
Matejchuk carries the puck a lot, right? Like, from what I remember, like, he was a guy that would hold on to it quite a bit.
yeah,
And
yeah,
Bouchard's just a master of one touches and just, like, maybe not a master of it, but he just has quick puck touches more than anything, where Matejchuk holds and pulls himself out of position. Bouchard's just bad defending. Matejchuk is
yeah,
too, but it's just like, I find that there's more movement with the puck with Bouchard. Just more.
yeah.
There's more directness. Where Matejchuk is taking that thing for a stroll. He's taking the scenic route with it.
Big time. Levshinov is a rover and is all over the ice in a freestyle, chaotic fashion. That's where the offense comes from. Right. That's my point. Right.
Yeah.
Number one, as the year went on, that happened way less. Right. Like, I have the data to show it. He was not generating much offense at 5-on-5 at all. Like, it just wasn't really happening. And that crazy offensive zone play that he brought was kind of not really there at the end of the year nearly as much. So I don't really know where it comes from. And if that's the case, like, if it is the case where it's like, you just let him go and he just goes wherever and, like, he just chases like, that's kind of the definition of, like, chasing production. And I don't think that's the same thing as, like, being an effective player, right? Like, if you can make it work around that, then fine. But there's a reason there's not very many defensemen that play like that in the NHL. Like, name any of them, right? I don't, like, Cale Makar could do that, but that's Cale Makar. And Levshinov is not Cale Makar.
Nobody's Cale Makar. Cale Makar
Roman
might be the best
Josi?
defenseman ever.
Roman Josi is a more pinchy offensive defenseman type guy, but I don't think I would compare Artem Levshinov to Roman Josi.
No, he doesn't
really
move as well.
No. So I don't know. I don't know.
And Yosi's just slick too. Like, the guy just takes the puck up the ice, does something sick, and gets an assist.
Yeah.
Where it's
okay.
not Levshinov at all.
Well, let's bang through the rest of this and go home. Over under percentage of Star Wars movies that are good.
Fingers.
I'd argue.
Down.
I'd argue 5 of them. 5 of them. 5 are good. 5 are good. Disappointing maybe, but good.
I haven't seen them recently enough to have answer that I'm comfortable with saying. So
right. I liked 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Or no, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 8. 7 I liked, but it's just a reboot. Like, it's just a carbon copy of the original. So you'll lose points for that because it's lazy.
Like
it worked, but it was lazy. And that's exactly what it was. So 2, 3, 4, 5, or no, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 8. Yeah. 2, let's never ever talk about that. Rewatching Attack of the Clones, that movie may as well just not exist. They may as well just wipe that memory from everybody's brain and no one would care. Okay. Over under was 50%. I would say over. Gravity is a good one, a good space movie. The Last Starfighter has good 80s lines. Yeah, true. I haven't seen that in a really long time. I watched that when I was little. I do love a good 80s sci-fi movie for sure, though. Expectations for Rucker McGroarty. If someone can get him the puck and he can shoot it, then he'll score. I agree. I was kind of in the camp of the Winnipeg Jets where they kind of weren't 100% sold on guaranteeing him NHL ice time and that making him annoyed. Because I probably wouldn't do that either. I don't. The last thing I don't know. If he can play with the right group of players around him and they can get him the puck, then it'll be okay. I just don't. I have my bar relatively low. Arrival, yeah, it was good. That's why I said it. I support the Kaiser. Yeah, I do. He made some good points back in the day, 140 years ago. You know, it was and he had my name. I have to support a guy who has my name, Mr. Wilhelm. You know, I got to do it. Jim Leahy for Trailer Park Supervisor. Is there any doubt? Like, Sam Losko would. You saw what happened to him. He can't even put together a coherent sentence.
Here's the thing. My brother's just been dying laughing watching all the Trailer Park Boys twice over the summer, so I caught glimpses. And I laughed at a lot of what I saw.
Oh, it's incredible.
I haven't seen the whole series, but my brother has watched it now twice, and he was watching it while we were in Nova Scotia as well. Just kicking back. We're on a tour bus, and my brother is dying laughing after a trip out to Peggy's Cove. He's just crying at the court scene. At the numerous court scenes.
Yeah, which one? The one where
he watched he watched the movie on the way through,
okay.
and he's like, "That's the only good thing of the movie."
Yeah.
But he
so if I can't drink and smoke, or if I can't smoke and swear, I can't defend myself.
Yeah.
That's an infringement on my charter.
I want to speak like a normal
freedoms.
person. All right.
Yeah. He just calls the prosecutor a dick.
Yeah.
It's like this.
Yeah. He just slanders him too.
Yeah.
Completely.
Anyway, Cape Breton's better than everywhere else in Nova Scotia. Yeah, fair point about Cape Breton, but all of Nova Scotia is very beautiful.
It is.
It's the floor on Nova Scotia is very, very high, and the ceiling is really high.
It's where the ceiling is, basically.
Arguably the most underrated place in the whole country.
They're almost the same thing, essentially.
Yeah.
It's just a beautiful province.
Yes. I highly recommend going. Halifax is fun, but if you get out of Halifax, it's beautiful. What's your evaluation of how prospect tournaments have gone so far? Honestly, I haven't seen much of them because I'm too busy doing the tracking work these days. Like I just don't, and also I never really find value in them. Like it's fun, but I remember people like losing their mind over Elmer Soderblom at one of these a few years ago and already coming into my DMs and stuff telling me how wrong I am on him, even though I don't know. It just is icky. I don't know. I don't want to.
We prefer if you commented on the videos instead. That at least gets us engagements. So if you're gonna tell Will he's wrong, please do it on a video.
It's a lot of I mean, obviously Brad Lambert and Gleb Trikozov are standouts and they're glorious human beings. But other than that, no, I haven't seen honestly a tremendous amount. Okay, now we've just got a lot of Trailer Park Boy references. Sam the Caveman. Worst Case Ontario. That's a good one. I've met cats and dogs who are smarter than Trevor and Corey. It's true.
Yeah.
Levshinov reminds me of prime Brent Burns. Oh, I mean, that has its own share of risks, I suppose, but I still don't.
I don't see it at all.
Ville Koivunen has been a dog so far in prospect tournament. Yeah, I've heard that. I saw a bit of that of one Pittsburgh game. I think they were playing. Who were they playing? It was Pittsburgh and Boston. It was Pittsburgh and Boston. I watched a bit of that game, and Koivunen looked pretty good. But yeah, I don't know.
Also, I did see a comment earlier about Mason McTavish being a 1C on a cup contender. I strongly disagree with that.
Nothing is impossible.
I just don't.
Just varying levels of improbable.
I don't see it. I like Mason McTavish as a 2C on a Stanley Cup contender, potentially. Just not a 1.
Well, on that note, I think we're going to call it a night. We've already run over time, and my voice is tired from doing this for the first time.
I got to go watch wrestling because I love wrestling.
Yeah, you're a wrestling boy.
As embarrassing as it is to say, I'm saying it, but it's a lot of fun.
So thank you very much for joining us. This was a lot of fun. It's good to get this going again. It's a little early, but we're getting going nice and early, and we got some guests that we want to bring on in the next little while. So setting the stage for the draft season and the NHL season pretty early, and we're going to aim high with some guests this year and try to get some things going, and hope it's going to be a great year. And there's going to be some stuff coming on the site as well that will be much better than it was. And so if you aren't subscribed to scouching.ca, please check that out.
Subscribe.
Subscribe. It gives us cash so that we can help AJ make a life for himself and help me buy my Bugatti that I've got in my Amazon wish list. So that I can make real content with it and like flash stacks while sitting in the driver's seat.
Here in my garage with my
Bugatti. Here in my garage. Yeah, here are my 5 favorite features of my Bugatti Chiron.
I can watch. I can track data.
Yeah, exactly. It's got a built-in spreadsheet machine, also known as a computer. Anyway,
we're such nerds.
What else?
Oh.
I know, we suck.
Also, thank you all for coming out tonight. It's awesome. I love the support that we've been getting. Really appreciate the growth. If you know anybody who you think would be interested in this content, by all means, share it, because we want to get bigger. We want to grow. We want to be the #1 subscribed to prospect channel. All right, that's our goal. It seriously is our goal. We want to do that. So
before
please.
you go, I don't know if this is brand new news, but P. Diddy just got arrested.
Oh.
Uh-oh.
Breaking news on the Scout.
Someone's in trouble.
Oh, he's probably in very big trouble.
Yeah, he's probably in very big trouble. But anyway, on that note, we can call it a night. Thank you for joining us. You can also scan all the QR codes and find out all the other ways you can help us out, but subscriptions definitely help the most. So thank you very much for joining us. Again, stay tuned for merch coming in the next little while, and we'll talk to you in just a little while. Yep. So have a good one.
We love you all, and go Leafs go. Good night.
Except for Brian.